Let's go
Not for sure
live. It's
how long.
preparing it, setting up meeting for custom streaming service.
We're going to send you a Cray 3 or 4.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're live. We've been live for 17 seconds.
You generally say 20 minutes and then you go, oh man, what have I done for the last 20?
Very funny. Okay, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up where it's split screen. Well, no, it's showing gallery view, speaker view on my end. Do we have all three of us showing up on the screen, or do you guys just see me?
I just see you.
We see you right now.
And not.
I see everyone.
Now I see Dr. Courtney, but not you.
I think what's happening is the Zoom program is automatically switching the camera to the person who's speaking. So the person who's talking will get put on the YouTube live stream. And I might play around with it some, but I'm not going to play around with it too much. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is Christopher High, and Dr. William Courtney and I have had some conversations over the past about a week and a half, and we've decided to broadcast live noon every Sunday to help create an online archive library of everything and anything cannabis. And so this is what I've called this is a show, and Cannabis Library TV is what we're naming it, and it's hosted through the Zoom Pro, and the channel on YouTube is the Solomon's Treasure Podcast. And so the Solomon's Treasure Podcast is going to have other shows as well. I'll be hosting those probably with other co-hosts, and Dr. William Courtney is going to be co-hosting this show. And you, Patty, and your husband, right? Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hi, I'm Patty Prince.
I'm Bruce Prince, and I formulate the products for Beautiful Earth Organics.
Oh, excellent.
Very nice. Very nice. So, Doctor, before you joined, Patty and Bruce had asked me about my background, and I was also mentioning to them how we're going to lay out the show. And so I'm going to answer that question, but before I answer that question, I'm going to give a little bit of understanding as far as what I think we can do for the show. I think I'm going to take a back seat after I give my introduction, and I will mute and I will close down my camera so that the video will then bounce between you two, and as you're talking and interacting, and it's going to be organic. You guys have never met each other. You may have heard of each other, you might not have, but you guys are going to discover and interact together as we're working towards talking about who we are and why we're involved in the cannabis industry. And I myself I'm 36 years old, and I'm from Missouri. And ever since I was a young teenager, I learned about cannabis. So I was born in '84, and in the '90s, I was discovering what 420 was. And so my last name is High, spelled Heye, and my birthday is April 20th. So, yeah, so
Double
We're
steeped.
You were born
A shoe in. It's hard
I
to find a host like that.
It's kind of hard to find a host like that, yeah. And so at a young age, I was able to have a unique perspective built in my life as in the prohibition era that we're coming out of. And so I love cannabis I love everything, but I like the fact that cannabis is an emerging industry and that we're discovering things all the time. And so my heart and my passion is to help build this online library so that people in our generation and the generations to come will have access to an understanding as far as what the plant is and what it can do for humanity. And so that's kind of my passion. I guess I could say I am a self-proclaimed cannabis expert, but I don't have any formal schooling, of course. But as most of us know, there's not too many cannabis schools yet. So it's not as though I could go get a doctorate and be a cannabis doctor or some type of, yeah, anyway, I'm kind of getting caught up on my words, and but I'm learning as I'm going, and we're figuring this out as we're moving along. The live stream is on the Solomon's Treasure Podcast YouTube channel, and I started that channel 2 weeks ago today with two cell phones, one Facebook Live with another Facebook. With another streaming, and I said I'm just going to go ahead and go with it. I'm going to start a podcast, and now I am here with you two, starting the first Cannabis Library TV show with a laptop on a Zoom Pro through the business that I have. I own Solomon's Treasure LLC, which is we'll talk more about that as we move along. And Dr. William Courtney is. I'm going to let him speak for himself, and I'm going to allow you two to interact. Dr. Patty and Bruce have told me that they're not for sure if they've heard about your background and who you are in the medical industry. And so I think it's going to be a pretty enjoyable podcast show because you two parties are going to be getting to know each other for the first time. And so I'm going to go ahead and is that a good enough of an introduction, guys?
Very good.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent.
Nice. So I'm going to go ahead and take a back seat. I'm going to mute my audio and I'm going to mute my video, and I'll be here hosting and watching and enjoying you two parties get to know each other. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, would you like me to make an introduction, or would you, or which way we go through?
Certainly, you can go ahead.
Okay. So I was quite anti-cannabis back in the early 2000s. A fellow I went to medical school with asked me if I would grant him an approval, and I was like, you know, you want me to approve of your use of cannabis? Like I said, we'd known each other for quite some time. Both of our kids graduated high school together, and I said, but you know, you got inflammation. He had a plantar fasciitis, so he had pain and inflammation. And in California at that time, you needed to have an approval for medical use. And I just was like, you know, I can give you steroids and give you painkillers. You know, what is this plant going to do? I was familiar with the plant, but it had always been more on a recreational basis. And but because of his inquiry, I began looking into its medical properties, and then suddenly was immersed, and then switched my entire practice to cannabis for 10, 15 years, initially reading all that I could find, and then began doing original research and going to the International Cannabinoid. It was an International Cannabis Research Society, but they changed the name because they wanted to class it up a bit, and so they wanted to call it the cannabinoid. And I was pretty upset with that because, you know, there are terpenes in there, and you know, there's quite a bit going on in the plant, and to cut it to one just to dump the term cannabis really I thought was disrespectful. But then the International Association of Cannabis Medicine also changed its name, and I was there that day, and I think it was in Germany or somewhere in Europe, and I became quite upset at the meeting that everyone is bailing on cannabis and wanting to go kind of scientific. And yeah, so I've been entrenched in the whole plant. The plant as, and particularly the plant as a dietary essential, is probably equivalent with my name in the community, meaning I'm not so much a phytocannabinoid or a monomolecular or even a small polymolecular group. I prefer the entirety of the plant, and particularly obviously used raw, because once it's heated, you lose classes of cannabinoids, the acidics, and you lose a lot of activities because the acidic phytocannabinoids are dramatically different than their neutral counterpart. And so,
We're big.
so when you take
Yeah.
when you take CBD
That.
Yeah, so that's my background is just a real interest in the raw plant, unheated use, whether it's in sprouts or juices or blended. I've had quite a few patients who maybe made a non-psychoactive pesto pasta, and then the next day they put it in the oven to warm it up for 10, 20 minutes, and suddenly their pasta became incredibly potent. And so, you know, heat does quite a lot of things to this plant, and not all of them good.
So, doctor, quick question: Do you have a website? Cannabis? Can you mention Cannabis International?
Yeah, Cannabis International is 30, 40 years old, or at least 10 or 13. It's not been updated, and it's missing a lot of my more recent interests in intracellular regulation, the endocrine system, which is the really the site of, I believe, the majority of cannabis benefits is the regulation that goes on within the plasma membrane, supporting the endogenous system. So a lot of that's missing from Cannabis International, but it was, remains. At one point, it was pretty hacked. There was somebody had got in somehow and typed Viagra and Cialis all over it, and so I mean, I haven't really been there much, so I would hardly call it reflective. But
Cannabis,
at some point,
it's www.cannabisinternational.org.
yeah.
Okay. I've got a committee.
And Patty and Bruce, would you like to give an introduction as to how you are involved with the cannabis and the cannabis industry?
Certainly. Yes.
Go ahead, Ben.
Roughly 5 years ago, my mother developed stage 3C ovarian cancer. It was inoperable and metastasized. When we went to see the surgeon said that my mom would pass very quickly and it would be very painful. There was nothing anyone could do for her. And she was 70, I think she was 74. Yeah. And so I have always been holistic. I didn't really know anything about cannabis except that, to smoke it. But other than that, I didn't know much about its medicinal qualities. And so I started to look up holistic ways on how to get rid of cancer, and CBD popped up. And so I went into a random store, asked them if they had CBD. They did. And I gave it to my mother. And instantly my mother stopped throwing up, and which was a great thing because she hadn't eaten in a month. And then
the diarrhea stopped.
Oh yeah, and she had diarrhea, major diarrhea. And that all stopped. And she was literally, I would have to lean down to see if she was breathing because she was so sick. She was in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk. She couldn't get off the couch. We had the pot beside the couch. And we called the company and we said, my mom has cancer. It looks like, it stopped her nausea. So that's really great. Do you have anything stronger? And they said, yes, we do. They said we have 1,800 milligrams. So we're like, okay, we'll try that. So we got that. And the doctor, she was in hospice. The doctors kept saying, say goodbye to your family. So it took a while before my mother's family was able to come. But when my mother's family finally came, they looked at me and they said, she doesn't look sick.
But she did prior. She was unrecognizable to us. She had withered away. She was, other than the ascites, because she had fluid buildup in her abdomen, the rest of her was very skeletonized. She was, very, very just wasting away, except for the bloat in her stomach where the ascites was.
So when we started to give her the very strong cannabis, she went from prone on the couch. She actually slept for 7 days, and she did not. Oh, she only woke up to eat, and then she went right back to sleep. So I tell people, of course, now sleep is healing. So if the cannabis tells you to sleep, you should sleep. So then after those 7 days were over, Bruce and I were in the kitchen, and she came walking out all by herself.
Which surprised us because she was supposed to be in a wheelchair, and if she was walking, she needed a walker. But she shuffled out on her own, which surprised us.
And she said, "I'm feeling better. I'm going to cook you breakfast." She cooked us breakfast. She went right back to bed.
Yeah.
We couldn't believe it. And we were like, oh my gosh, no way, no way. And then 6 weeks later, my mother was doing, I didn't have to stay with her. She was doing everything on her own. She actually went on vacation with her girlfriend, sans wheelchair. She did not have a wheelchair. And then 4.5 months, in 4.5 months, my mother was cancer free. So when that happened, we thought it was a miracle. We put it in the newspaper, and we said, anybody who has cancer, please contact us, because we know where to get this, and we can get rid of your cancer for you.
Of course, we didn't know we weren't supposed to say that, but you know.
So then we got a call from the oncologist, and she was not happy.
She was not happy.
But that's okay. We got through all that, and we asked the company if we could put it on our Facebook, and they said, "Oh, you have a story, you should sell it." And we're landlords. We're not medical. We don't know anything. And so one thing I did do for my mother, which is something that is in our protocol right now, is that we do have everyone eat only fruits, vegetables, and meats, or no meats.
Organic. And
drink lemon water. So while this is going on, they said, "Oh, you should sell it." We said, no, we can't do that, but we're going to tell everyone, because it was put on our hearts to tell people. We were kind of, it was,
Patty,
I don't know.
Patty, can I ask you, I'm hearing everything you're saying. I want to ask a question. Do you guys have a background, a religious background at all?
Well, we are Christian, and we do believe in God, and we feel like so many amazing things, miracles have happened in our life that, we have to give back. So we're going to do it for free. And so then what happened was my mother was blueberry picking, and the guy who owned the blueberry patch had stage 4 lung cancer. So she said, "Oh, you have to call my daughter. She knows all about how to get rid of cancer." So he called. We went there because we do in-house consultations.
Yeah, we make house calls.
We make house calls,
but we make house calls.
And we went there, and he was anti-cannabis. We talked him into it, and 6 weeks later, he was cancer-free.
Which was an amazing thing, because the poor gentleman was, when we first met him, he was horizontal in a lazy boy recliner. He was so bloated from the chemotherapy regimen that he was going through prior that he stopped his oncologist and said, "Look, the stuff is killing me." I felt so bad for the gentleman. He looked like a bloated whale on a beach. His fingers were fat like sausages. His feet looked like blown up footballs with little fat toes sticking out the end of his feet. And he was very uncomfortable. He had oxygen under his nose. And what he was afraid of getting high from marijuana. And we had convinced him that this is non-psychotropic, this doesn't get you high. It was a lot of different high concentration cannabinoids, excluding the Delta-9 THC. So we convinced him, and well, the rest is history. He's still here. And
it did have the legal amount of THC.
It did. I always like to formulate at the 0.3% and just a little bit lower, because I think that synergy is very important.
Full spectrum.
It's all full spectrum. And we, surprisingly enough, we don't even decarb our products. But I have a little bit of
one question. So if somebody's watching this show right now, I'm trying to put myself in their perspective. If they've never heard of cannabis being used as a dietary essential. They've never heard of cannabis being used as medicine, or they may have heard of it, but they've been very skeptical, and or they've just been a non-believer. And also putting myself in the perspective of somebody who is definitely not interested in trying anything that has to do with cannabis at all. So from my viewpoint, I think it's important to make a note that where the United States were, well, first of all, I'm in the United States, the doctor is from the United States, and you two are in the United States as well. And so, from our perspective, the way that the culture has been shaping and the way that the laws have been developing, in the 90s, as most people are aware that are in the cannabis industry, the cannabis became used as a medicine for the first time legally in the state of California. Cannabis, that was the first state that allowed it. And you two are in California, and the doctor also had his clinic in Northern California. So you guys were in an area that had more influence at the beginning. And that's one important thing to note. The other is,
I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris. We're in Florida.
And
Oh.
we were originally from Vermont. If anyone knows the state of Vermont,
it happened in Vermont.
Yeah, this was we lived in right around Stowe area in Vermont. If anyone's ever skied at Stowe Mountain Resort, that's the area we're.
My apologies.
Yes.
My apologies. Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you letting me know that. You actually mentioned it before, and I said California, and then you said no, Florida. So the other important thing, I think, for people to understand if they're watching this for the first time and they've never studied much or had much influence in the cannabis industry, the United States passed a bill, a 2018 farm bill, and what that farm bill did is it made a distinction between what is known as quote unquote marijuana and quote unquote industrial hemp. And so the doctor specializes in cannabis as a dietary essential. And you two are also talking about cannabis not as something that you smoke to get high. And that's not what these two conversations, or you two parties, are having as a conversation. Cannabis is more, I can say this from my perspective, because I also consume a full spectrum hemp product. And cannabis is more than just something that you smoke to get high. It's actually something that all of us should have in our diet. And that's what I discovered online through my study. And I discovered Dr. William Courtney teaching that. And that's how we established our relationship, because the doctor believes and that it should be in all of our diets as an essential nutrient.
And animal diets, the farming industry. We strongly would love to see a shift back to feeding industrial hemp and other types of cannabis to our farm animals. Think how healthy our food production will become at that point, because all these animals have, endocannabinoid systems. So why not take advantage of, what's been built into the program to keep all of our animals and humans healthy? This is the perfect plant. And these are signaling molecules. So I like to call them information set molecules. That may be a kind of a different expression for this, but they don't build bone, but they tell your body how to build bone. They don't build muscle or keep things in homeostasis, but they tell your body how to remain in homeostasis. And that's for every major body system. So it's very important to understand that we're really we're under a new wave of information now on this plant, and the research is so important to understand it completely.
So Bruce, you had explained something that could be over the heads of some people, but you two started off about 5 years ago with with watching your mother. Was that right, Patty?
Yes. And we brought my mother to remission. And then once you're in remission, we found if you don't continue to do the cannabis and you don't continue to eat the organic food, then you you can go right back into full-blown cancer again and become very sick.
Doctor,
So
could
this is
you, Doctor, could you explain why that is? I mean, do you agree with what she's saying? Could you
Definitely.
explain why?
I don't know, I've seen it often, and particularly because when I was living in California, people would come there and they would they'd get a treatment and they would have a success, but then they would return to a state where it was illegal and they were reluctant, and so there'd be a recrudescence or a reoccurrence of it. And what, from a theory that I've been working on and really haven't written much about instead of informally, there's a cell called the antigen presenting cell, which is a white blood cell of the larger variety. So it's a macrophage. And what it does is it monitors for aberrations or changes in the structure of cells. And so they surround the lumen of the intestine, they circulate in the blood, and they're looking for anything that they think needs to be destroyed and eliminated. And so if they see a cell architecture that's beginning to become a dysplasia before it becomes a neoplasia or cancer, they want to make that call early. And so they're part of the command and control system of that arm of the immune system that's involved in the detection and prevention of cancer. Well, the endogenous cannabinoid system regulates the maturation of the antigen presenting cell, and cannabis supports the function of that cell as it supports the function of all cells. So the whole intracellular environment, the endocrine system, really speaks to why cannabis has such a broad range of benefits, because whether the cell is making testosterone or estrogen or remodeling bone or firing neurons, they all have, they have a mitochondria that produces the energy. They have a nucleus that provides the specific direction of that cell, and then a work pathway that takes in raw materials, builds a molecule, and then secretes it back into the organism. So the regulation of that intracellular environment, which is under the endogenous cannabinoid system, is complemented, and cannabis therefore becomes a dietary essential, as you may say, vitamin C, if it's a deficiency, you're gonna have scurvy. Vitamin D deficiency, you get rickets. Vitamin D, thiamine. If you're deficient in the terpenocannabinoids, you got a lot of problems. But it bears to the same way. If you put it into the diet, it'll bring the system back to normal function. You take it out of the diet, the system will digress back to where the white blood cells no longer recognize that cell as abnormal. They allow it to proliferate, and then you're back into a life-threatening situation. So I entirely agree with you. And if you use cannabis from the time you're a fetus forward, the one thing is you never get to know that you have some type of regulatory problem in the intracellular system that would predispose you to a leukemia, a metastasis of the muscle, bone, nerve, whatever blood cell line. But in fact, you only need cannabis as medicine when you forgot to use it as food, because as food, it's providing you with the support that prevents the condition that needs to be treated.
Yeah, Bruce,
So we are in
Bruce and
agreement.
Patty, you two are very excited. I was watching you two respond. I'm not for sure if the YouTube channel is able to see that video, but as the doctor was explaining the vitamin C, vitamin D, it's on that same level. Cannabis is an essential nutrient, and you two knew right away. This is something that you have also discovered along your journey, correct?
Yes.
We have, and what we call it is, and this is what I really think is happening. Again, my background, just to tell you my background, I'm a former retired IBMer. I have a background in chemistry and physics and electronics. And so
you worked at IBM? At IBM?
Yeah. I worked in a clean room in a class 10 environment. The doctor will appreciate this. The clean room that I worked in is a class 10 environment. It's about 1,000 times cleaner than a surgical room. So I was, the only thing you saw were my eyes. I was completely gowned up, and I made a lot of the, devices that go into the computer systems for IBM. But where I was going with this is one thing that we realized early on is that endocannabinoid deficiency is a real thing. That's a terminology that I picked up after we started researching about cannabinoids and terpenoids and flavonoids, again, the whole flower of the plant.
Can you say that? And I apologize if it seems as though I interrupt, but could you repeat that word again, just so people can have a chance to hear it twice?
Yeah,
Endocannabinoid deficiency?
yeah, an endocannabinoid deficiency, you have a system in your body, the endocannabinoid system, which is a series of not only just receptors that cover, your immune system, your neurological system, all your major organs, but it's also chemicals too. The system isn't just, a receiving receptor, it's a information set or a signaling molecule. So we found that if you're deficient, you're going to end up with some sort of imbalance and you could end up in a disease state. If you don't do something to remediate that or fix that deficiency, you're just going to keep dropping back into that disease state. And we've realized this after time, especially with Patty's mom, because her cancer came back because she stopped. Then she got back on to the paste and the oil. And again, she was getting kicked out of hospice for the second time. So if you're not putting these in your diet as a supplementary item, then you're just going to get deficient again. And this is what we've learned. And this is important information to understand too, we believe.
When you start talking about including it in the diets of pregnant women for fetus, that's where you find out who's standing on what side of the line, whether they're kind of accepting or tolerating a bit of it. But when you start talking about fetal requirements, it's a bright line of this must be important without side effects. And you can learn an awful lot about an individual when you refer to its critical role in fetal development and the prevention of, perinatal disease, and as well as early childhood cancers and a whole range of things. So, when it becomes part of the maternal diet, then we'll know that we're really making serious progress with its recognition as a dietary essential.
So now that you brought that up, we are actually growing an organic baby right now, an organic CBD baby. And things are going very well. The pregnant lady is taking our CBD paste, which is this right here. Kind of looks like RSO oil a little bit. And we also, our oldest is 98 that takes our oil, and our youngest are nursing babies because the mother is taking the oil and the babies are getting it through the nursing. We have one that it's hard for us because we're not doctors to actually get the data. Like, we don't get the data. We get, oh my gosh, this is happening, So one of the little babies, he's now 2, he reads.
Yeah, at 2 years old.
Yeah, 2. He was, when he was 8 months old, those little trampolines, he could stand on that all by himself and jump at 8 months old.
Such an athlete.
Oh my gosh. Push his brother, and 60-pound brother, in one of the little carts. He's just pushing that brother right along, and we're just like over the moon with this. So, I would love to have any pregnant woman on my CBD paste. I would love to see babies and see. So another youngin that we had, 2 years old, his name is Kobe, and he has neuroblastoma. And I actually lived through a child at one of my jobs who the family's child had neuroblastoma. And it was the most horrible thing I'd ever lived through in my life. And the child passed away at 7. And this little child, the grandmother came to me and said, Kobe has neuroblastoma. I'm like, oh my goodness, let's just do this. Let's do it. Let's do it. And we did it, and it was 42 days, and Kobe is cancer free.
And that's a huge thing for neuroblastoma. The survival rate is so low for these poor kids, and the hell that their families go through. My dad passed of cancer. My grandparents passed of cancer. So for me, this is personal. This is very personal. And I wish I would have had the products that we formulate now back when my father had colon cancer, because I truly believe that if he got on one of these, I'll call it cannabinoid programs, but this full spectrum program, I really believe he'd be here today. I really believe that. And we've had a lot of people that have cancer that are now cancer free. And I know we can't say that it's a cure, because we all produce malignant cells. It's part of our biological function, unfortunately. I know you say that, but it's true. We all produce malignant cells.
Well, he knows that.
And our immune systems have an ability to handle that destruction of those malignant cells until we become deficient. And so I'm trying to put a puzzle together from what I'm learning and from what I'm researching. And I do follow researchers from around the world, including Raphael Mashulam's group. And I like to see what these guys are doing, because then I formulate products based on their research.
Okay, guys, you guys are doing an amazing job. I want to say that this is turning out to be a very valuable source of information. Start right from the start with episode 1. So I'm super excited about that. And one of the things that I do want to make clear to people is that none of us had a conversation about what we were going to be talking about before the show began. There are no affiliate agreements between any type of product sales or promotion. It's my heart to allow you, Patty and Bruce, and any other people who want to come on in the future and share their story. You're open to share your product. We're not asking for any money, and we're not paying any money to the people who are coming, and we're not receiving any type of kickbacks or anything like that with any products. What I want with this show is to allow people like Patty and Bruce to come on and share their story and wherever they are in the industry. And if they have products, then that's fine. You're welcome to plug those. If you have a story, that's obviously what we want to get out. So, but all of it's open, all of it's welcome, and there's no exclusive agreements or anything behind the scenes that you guys have. I want everything to be as transparent, obviously. So I'm letting people know that. And same thing with the doctor, as far as I'm aware. I don't even think, doctor, that you have any association with any type of company whatsoever. I think you may have in the past, correct?
Yeah, my position is that if you are using cannabis as food, if you're growing it as sprouts or leafy green vegetable, it'd be like trying to interpose yourself between carrots and the customer, or between salad or kale or anything else. And so there's really not a lot of room between me and the food you eat. My whole goal is to let people know that this is as important as other foods that provide, vitamins. And I think we're out to vitamin H, G or H. I went all the way down the list looking where we could finally grab a hold of the terpenoid cannabinoids, and there's a lot of stray little vitamins that are out there. But it certainly is. It's that level of a dietary essential, and its deficiency is, dysfunction of the immune system and non-self recognition by the antigen presenting type cells is a key one. And I have also had, neuroblastoma that had a miraculous remission, is how the medical personnel call it, when you suddenly go from you're going to be dead in 30 days to, wow, you're still alive. That's miraculous,
Beautiful.
So I've often been called a doctor of remission.
Yes. One thing we do tell people as well is that, we would love to have fresh cannabis. That would be fantastic. That would be really great. But we also feel as though the food is very important to the health. Like that's the top thing. It's the food, the CBD, what you drink. We also talk about hair, body, any kind of items that you use on your person. And we also suggest that people do 4 10 ml tubes a month. So these are 1,800 milligrams. So you would do 1,800 milligrams in a week, and the diet, and we would ask you to do it rectally if you had cancer.
So where would a person, if they're wanting to find your product, where would they find access? Do you have a website, Facebook page,
Yeah.
Twitter account?
Yes, we have everything.
So what should a person search for?
It's the name of the company is Beautiful Earth Organics, and it's www.beautifulearthorganicscbd.com. And you can always go to patty.prince.cbd. That's our YouTube channel. And then also where everything happens for us is on my Facebook at Patty Prince, not my business Facebook, just my regular Facebook, which is where we met you, Chris.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a second. I'm going to share a little bit of my story on how I met you two. I got back from my travels in Honduras. I'm kind of an explorer. I just love adventure, and I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie as well. And I love gold mining and traveling to places that very few people have ever gone. And I came back from my last trip, um, and I had known that the full spectrum CBD was what gave me the best relief. I had tried RSO oil in 16. I made some of that up for the first time, made my own hemp oil myself. And when I got back on my last trip, I had already purchased beforehand like 3 different bottles of just regular CBD. So if people don't know the difference between RSO and CBD, you can look those terms up. But basically, RSO is a heated version. That's Rick Simpson oil, and they teach to decarb the oil before consuming it. And I had done a 60-gram treatment for myself. It was 2017, and when I got back on my last trip about a year ago, I had found out that the U.S. had passed this farm bill, 2018 farm bill, and that a friend of mine in West Virginia, who I visited his home and we met through the gold mining community, he tells me that he's growing hemp. And I'm like, wow. So like CBD oil and products are very, costly. At least they were, in my opinion, with where I was at, because I spend a lot of money on my travels. And so he sent me a care package of some samples, and for the first time, I was able to have access to a sufficient amount of hemp, and I created my own oil, I should say, a sufficient amount that made me feel to where I felt great, and but not being high, not being stoned, which I've definitely got experience getting high and being stoned, which I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the relief. I'm looking for the health benefits, and I'm wanting to give the best to my body because I want to be the best person. I've got 2 girls I'm raising. And so I shared the story with another friend of mine. This is still on the same subject of how I met Patty and Bruce. I'm very involved in social media, especially with my Facebook page. I have a small group of friends that I don't necessarily try to expand too much, but I always try to keep my topics as truthful and honest as possible, and share and be willing to listen. And a friend of mine told me that I should talk with you two. He said you should talk to Patty and Bruce, and that's a friend of mine in New York, because I was explaining to him that I've got a friend of mine in West Virginia who's got a bunch of hemp and he's trying to sell it. And so like I'm trying to help make a connection for him, as just out of the generosity of my heart, because he sent me this care package, and I'm like, dude, what can I do to just help you promote your business? And that's how I came across you two. We became friends on Facebook, and we've been friends for the better part of 6 months, maybe almost, no, at the beginning of the year before the pandemic began to hit. Yeah. And so, yeah, so you've got a lot of stuff going on in the Facebook world. That's how we met. And the other day I was making a comment on the fact that I've got this show, And anybody who's on my Facebook page knows that I've just been posting a whole lot about Solomon's Treasure lately. There might be some people who blocked me and said I'm tired of watching this guy's post, but I've been excited because I'm moving forward with this project, and you responded, and I told you, hey, why don't you come on to the show on Sunday? It's going to be our first live stream episode for the Library TV. And so anyway, that gives an explanation to make a short story even longer on how we met there.
Huh.
Well, we're honored. We're so honored that you invited us. I
Thank
mean,
you.
this is, we're really trying to tell the world to, at least consider this. Please consider it. That's usually the way we start out our conversations. Please consider these hemp products because they're so beneficial for your health, and they're such an awesome supplement for keeping everything in balance. And we've learned that now, and we have to share that with the world. At least tell the world. They may choose not to listen, but at least we're putting the information out there for them to consider.
Well, talk about sharing. So I decided to share with my grandmother, who led me to Jesus when I was a little boy. I shared with my grandma. I said, Grandma, I've got this hemp oil and I feel amazing. And she says, I can hear it in your voice. And I want to tell you that I've been taking hemp oil for the past 2 years. And I thought, no way.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wonderful. Small world.
Yeah, it's a very small world. All right, so you guys,
And
if you want to do some
along
more
those,
talk.
wanted to make a comment. We've a company L5 we've been doing some work with and produced a WCO, which is a whole cannabis oil. So it requires sophisticated extraction. They use a CO2 to pull off 100% of the plant. They generally take that and push it out to a high CBD product or a THCV product. They then do fractionation. But I've been advocating strongly that they just leave the whole cannabis oil as a very, very complex. And if you look at the ratios, you'll find that the CBD acid could be 50 times the amount of CBD in the plant. THC acid could be 120 times. And so the whole, and as much as the WCO, the whole cannabis oil is, I believe, a snapshot. I believe cannabis sprouts, you can, there's a lot of places online where you can buy a half a pound or a pound of German organic sproutable cannabis seed. Anyone with a quart jar and a tablespoon can be a sprout farmer. And then so suddenly 365 days a year, you have food grade, there's no pesticides, miticides, herbicides.
I might be having to do that soon here, doctor, in my home.
Well, we all need to be doing this soon. It's and it's
do that also. We see the benefit of the raw flower, just juicing it, or always low temperature. And I understand that too. I've got a chart where all the different cannabinoids burn off and get destroyed. I formulate at very, very low temperatures because I do not want to destroy anything in this flower that we're doing the extraction from. For me, that's critical. We want to keep the acids intact. We try not to decarb everything. And if you look at our COAs, you're going to notice we still have the acid portions in that. And I find that through Raphael's studies, he's saying, and this is his claim, I don't know how to verify this, but I believe what he's saying, that CBDA is 1,000 times more bioavailable to certain receptor groups, like the serotonin receptor and the vanilloid group. So if this is the case, then I definitely want to have CBDA or THCA. I want the acid components in my products.
I'm going to be right back.
It's like, I don't know
guys.
how.
I'm just letting you know that I'm gonna go to my bedroom real quick. I'm gonna bring back one of the bottles of CBD hemp oil that I had purchased and share part of the story with that, and that brings the topic up there. 1 second.
And so the sprout thing has been kind of my latest iteration, because before that it was people had to grow plants to have the fresh leaf, and that's strenuous for some people. The pots, the dirt, the bathroom, the lights, and when you move to sprouts, you don't need illumination, ventilation. It's the quart jar in your kitchen counter, and there is, according to one Eastern European study, which I would love to reproduce, between day 10 and 14, a cannabinoid spike in the microgreen that is stunning. It does disappear again for the last 2 weeks of the first month. So little cannabinoid content, first two, last two, but right in the middle, you have this very amazing 4-day window where the microgreen is going to provide you what the plant's going to do in 60, 70. I mean, it peaks out at day 80 to 90 in terms of cannabinoid content, which then falls off sharply as the plant goes into flower, the leaf. So with the sprout, you end up getting the vegetative leaf quality for 4 days, but it's pretty easy to put a cup or two of sprouts. You can put them in a salad sandwich, blend them into anything. They're low fiber, flavor's a little easier, content is there, so the sprout is a way that, like you said, I can't get myself in the middle of that very much in terms of benefiting financially, but you can go online, order yourself a sativa, an indica, various cultivars, and there's a lot of people talking about, well, which strain? I'm pretty sure that the body sequesters these cannabinoids, and so regardless of the cultivar that you settle on, and if you look at some of my early videos and studies, I'm all about, there's this strain is good for PTSD, and this is good for inflammatory bowel disease, and breaking it out into strain-related cultivars. But that's if you're going to do an acute treatment for someone who has not been using it as food. So you come in and you have, Crohn's disease and you're having a flare up, then you want to go to something that like 75-25 to treat that in the acute moment. But if the person had been eating it regularly, it's my belief that the body tenaciously grabs these cannabinoids, removes them from the serum in 20 to 30 minutes, puts them into storage. And then once you have those once those stores are saturated, then the body is going to take, say the particular cannabinoid is only present in, 0.5% or 1/4%. Whereas maybe CBD is 22% of the weight to weight, but maybe THCV is 0.6%. But over a 60-day period. So if you eat the raw plant regularly for a couple of months, I'm untested, but my assumption is that you pretty much are going to saturate those stores for all those cannabinoids, and then you'll have all 150 of the cannabinoids at an operating level, and 130 of the terpenes and the synergies that come from combining the 15 and 20 carbon molecules in terms of enhancing their efficacy. So the consumption as a dietary essential over several months will keep building and building and building to finally begin to plateau completely. Some studies say 240 days, some say 30. It depends on whether it's prohibition or some fringe research. I mean, so I settled on 60 to 90, but that's kind of in the middle. There are some people, federal government goes 30 days so that they can say that you're using cannabis when you're not supposed to and put you back in jail. But there are other studies that go out to 240 days. Hey there.
So I've been back. I've actually been listening, and but I've been back for about maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and I don't want to change the topic, where we're going with this too much, and show this product that I have just yet, because I like where we're going with this conversation. This is information that I wanted to hear, because I'm interested. I mean, I'm in Massachusetts, and so I'm in a situation where I can legally grow. I'm in a small apartment. I'm in an urban setting. It's compact, and the winter is coming, and I need a fresh supply for myself and for my wife of raw cannabis juice. I'm not interested in pushing the envelope yet with feeding it to my children at the moment, but for myself and for
Children
my wife.
first.
What was that?
Children first. It's just kind of a tenet of mine that if something's precious, you give it to the kids, and then when there's a little left over, the elderly can scrape out the bowl. But
well, let me explain where my concern is, and maybe I need to step up my perspective. My concern is with any possible legal ramifications or any type of persecution towards me.
There shouldn't be.
Well, I am. I grew up in the Prohibition era, and I'm from Missouri, so
Right.
There really shouldn't be, because we have so many children on our CBD. It's like unbelievable, the amount of children that we have on our CBD. And I don't believe that there's any, and you're in a legal state too.
Right, you're in a
legal state.
They're a recreational state also. But Chris, let me kind of say this, because this is why we third-party lab test. And I think this is why it's so critical to put people's minds at ease through the science. We have law enforcement on our products. And what I tell them is this: you can go to our certificates of analysis. If you want me to talk to your company's HR department, I'll explain our COAs to them. I think this is part of the education process that needs to occur now that this is being rolled out, and it is a legal product in 40 countries in all 50 states. So the education is part of this industry, and I think the responsible companies also have an education component built into them. At least we do, and we feel that's necessary. So the doctor alluded to something very interesting. He was talking about different cultivars. Well, we realized that very early on. We blend multiple cultivars together, and that's why our COAs are so complex and we have so many of the trace cannabinoids. Now our goal is to build on those trace cannabinoids and build up higher percentages.
And the terpenes.
And the terpenes and the flavonoids. Okay, Canflavin B has been shown to be very effective against pancreatic cancer. And so there is an orphan study, I believe, that's going on in Jamaica. Not sure if it's been completed yet, but a couple months back I saw that they were doing that. So again, it's not just the cannabinoids, it's the terpenoids and the flavonoids. Flavonoids are the pigmentations in the plant. The terpenoids, for people who don't understand, those give plants, vegetables, even trees, pine trees, their aroma and their flavor. If you're eating a strawberry, the terpene that gives that strawberry its taste and its smell is unique to the strawberry. But these are also found in cannabis plants to very high degrees. And a lot of these terpenes, like beta-caryophyllene, that's one of the terpenes that plugs directly into the endocannabinoid system and has very far-reaching health effects. It's anti-inflammatory, it's anti-cancer, which we look for those because that's how we got involved in this. We started out with cancer, and that is the path that we're going to continue to go down. If we can help someone prolong their life, have a better quality of life, and they're willing to entertain or at least try this, then we're going to supply them with one of the cleanest, highest concentration products that you can get. That's our goal.
Our next kind of like group that we have that we do is anxiety. So our CBD, our 2000 milligram CBD is high in CBDA.
Very important.
And we found that CBDA stops anxiety in its tracks. Literally, if you take the CBD, put it under your tongue, and you count to 60, your anxiety is going to be gone. You're
going to feel a drop in, you're just going to feel a calmness come over you. And again, it's not getting high. And that's the beautiful thing about it. I like to say it's like when people take our product for the first time, it's very strong compared to a lot of other CBD products in the market. And I think it's very beneficial because it is a true full spectrum. And when people get a hold of a full spectrum product at this concentration, they get results. And we don't say this, they say it right in front of us. Like, I didn't think this was going to work, but within 5 minutes of taking it, they're feeling very calm and very relaxed. So this is an important thing for people who have anxiety or depression. If you can balance that neurological chemistry naturally with an organic product, what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing.
I've got I've got a light behind me. It's actually the sun.
Oh, sun.
Around you, Chris.
We just thought it was your halo. We were going for it.
It's not my halo. And this is one of the products, because you mentioned the anxiety part, and before you got to that, you was mentioning the need for children to have this, and that, well, I guess I am having to overcome my anxiety. You know, my journey and my life and my story, you know, there's a price that comes with being an adrenaline junkie. And I've caused a lot of stress. on myself, and I've been through some traumatic events, and so that's automatically caused some anxiety buildup, and that's why I had spent $100 on this bottle right here. And not only did I spend $100, it was like 120 on this bottle. This was the third bottle that I purchased legally in the United States, and I had flown up from Honduras and killed like 6 birds with one stone on that travel. And one of the things that I definitely wanted to do was buy this. And I was in Honduras at the time, and this would, well, I found my first bottle of CBD, and before I got back home, I bought it here in the Boston area in Cambridge. And before I came back home on the bus, I was already almost crying. And I've tried RSO before, and RSO was nice, but the thing with RSO is I would get the psychoactive effect. And but I was on my way back home and on the bus, and when I got home, I was sitting next to my wife, and I was able to see her through. I was able to see how my stress and my anxiety has been damaging her. And so it was a very profound experience. It was a very grounding experience. It was a very anti-anxiety experience when when I bought my first bottle. So when I bought this third bottle, uh, going out of my way to find a shop that would sell me a product when I was in Dallas, Texas, um, it was definitely on my list of things that I wanted to do. And this happened in 2000 and let's see, 19 April 2019, and I bought it at a brand. I'm gonna show it just for the story. I'm not getting any kickbacks on this either, but and I'm not trying to go into competition with you guys either, Doctor Patty. But this is one of your competitors. It's the CBD American Shaman, and
Yeah.
Right.
what the CBD American Shaman, and what brought this to my thinking was when we mentioned bioavailability of the CB. You said CBDA, correct?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had asked me something because we're all figuring this out together, and so I'm sharing my story of my discovery on this stuff. A friend of mine here in the Boston area, I told him about the conversations that I was having with you, doctor, and he said ask the doctor if he knows about nanotechnology, and as far as for making things more bioavailable. And I said, well, I don't know if he has. And I got into studying what nanotechnology, and I remembered the word. I was like, I think that's on that label of the bottle that I have. And sure enough, there it was. And I told him it mentions that there's nanotechnology. And I don't think it's you're able to see there, but if you go to the American Shaman website, it says that they have I'm sure that it's going to say, but here on the label it says proprietary nanotechnology, nature enhanced by science. And so then I thought, well, what is nanotechnology? And I got online and I found out that, and that's what actually makes this water soluble. I found out that basically it's ultrasonic treatment to, and that's not the technical word, but an ultrasonic generator, an ultrasonic frequency, and that I don't know what the actual technical word is of what it does, but I was familiar with ultrasonic frequencies with the mining that I do, and I've been researching and studying on how to solve the problem with the mercury and the mining use and how to recover gold on the microscopic level with just water without having to use mercury. And one of the ways that there was a report that I read was that people had used ultrasonic cleaning or an ultrasonic generator to wash the slurry or to process the slurry before it goes over a gravity separation process. And so I was already familiar with ultrasonic generation because I had spent, probably 100 hours in researching that technology and stuff. And so when I saw that the proprietary nanotechnology on this bottle, and then I connected that with the ultrasonic generation, I'm thinking to myself, well, is there a way um, to process or somehow pre-treat the cannabis juice with an ultrasonic generator? Uh, do you guys know anything about that, or am I got this halo's getting really strong, man? I must be hitting something.
Let me just say that that's the formulation process that I use, is an ultrasonication process. I do not make a water soluble. I am going to keep it in a carrier oil because those lipids help bind those molecules to proteins. So I'm not going to say nanotechnology is gimmicky. It's just nano is a measurement. That's all it is. It's you're going to break these components down to their individual components, surround them with a lipid, which is the carrier oil that helps carry it into the bloodstream. So you'll see our products are all full spectrum natural and carrier oils. Your body can process oils just as easily as it can process a water-based product. So I find that those lipids, and this is why we do not winterize, you're going to find that our products are very stable. You know, the way that I formulate them in the lab, I'm not going to give away all my secrets, but it's a very stable product and it's done in oil.
So, so I am hitting something there that I didn't know that you were even involved with. Ultrasonic. There's ultrasonic as part of the process. So I'm kind of wow, that's amazing. Doctor, have you heard about that? And the reason I ask is because my friend told me to ask you. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, back 2005 or 6 or something. I had a series of patients with a family member that had Dravet's, had 4 or 5 families, and there is no more active parents in the world than the parents of a child that has 300 or 400 seizures a day. I mean, they are just incredibly tight, focused, and working together. And when we first went off to Barcelona and found a 20% CBD acid plant, most people refer to it as a CBD plant, but the amount of CBD is 3 or 4 or 5% compared to the CBD acid in the living plant. But they were using ultrasonic, jewelry cleaners. I mean, this was back when, and they stumbled on this as just family members trying to kind of process cannabis in a direction that would benefit their children. And this was a lot of real early basic research, but the whole they came up with this on their own. They called me and then they were kind of going over their use of that, and one of their daughters was maybe 11 and came over to our home office, and she was almost prior to the introduction of cannabinoids for the treatment of her condition. Like a 2 or 3 year old child was just like running circles around this girl that was nearly comatose from the kind of medications that she had been put on. And after she moved into cannabis and CBD, and they came up with this ultrasonic processing, the girl came back and she was just like, she was poking fun at her mother. I mean, just full on adolescent, verbally smart, present. And it's just as I speak, it makes the hair stand up in my arms, the conversion of this child from the kind of Western medicines that were very sedating.
Such a beautiful thing.
I think that we actually do this because I know why I do it. I do this because when people come and tell me that my oil has saved their life, there's no greater feeling for me in the world. So it's kind of, in a way, a little selfish for me to be helping people because I get such a big, it just makes my life so much fuller than it already is. And I just can't imagine not doing this for the rest of my life. I'm going to be 90 and I'm going to be saying, you didn't take your cannabinoids today or something. Once a cannabis
activist, always a cannabis activist, eh?
Right, I think so.
Patty has a beautiful expression, and it probably should be across the CBD industry. or the cannabinoid industry, because like the doctor said, it's not just CBD, it's hundreds of components working in synergy. But once you see someone who goes from a very dire diagnosis of you have 3 to 6 months to live, go home and get your house in order, to almost being resurrected from the dead. I mean, the things that we've seen aren't normal in the pharmacy industry. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, but we're seeing some things that appear miraculous, but yet when you research it further, it isn't miraculous at all. Science. It makes perfect biological sense. And this is what we're trying to tell people. So, but the expression Patty has is, once you see this, you cannot unsee it. You have to tell people. If you have any compassion towards your fellow human being, you're inclined, you're driven to tell people. Right. And that's where we're at. We didn't go looking for this at all. This came looking for us. And seeing that it did, I feel that we have a level of responsibility now to share this information with the world, because, man, I wish my dad was still here. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so very good information, lots of amazing stuff that we're sharing and discovering. And Patty and Bruce, you two were able to share quite a bit about your, a good introduction as far as what you guys are doing, why you're doing it. And if anybody wants to find more information, obviously the information's available on the website. I think that what we can do now as far as kind of changing the turn of the course is, Doctor, would you be able to share a little bit with Patty and Bruce and tell them how you discovered in Northern California with the could you explain someone how you discovered eating the plant raw? And we're gonna go in that direction, and then as we're wrapping up, probably within a half an hour to 45 minutes, we're going to talk about what can Christopher do inside of his world to help grow what's needed for his family. We're going to go towards that at the end. So if you could share, Doctor, what and why and how you've taken the position that you have as cannabis as a dietary essential.
Well, like I said, it bears to a relationship with a physician that I went to school with, and his request that pushed me to begin searching. And obviously, the first thing you stumble on is CBD. So my business card initially had the CBD molecule on it, and then several years later, I changed that molecule to CBD acid. And then another 3 years later, I changed it to have both molecules on the card and the ratio between the CBD acid and CBD to show some of the complexity. And then on the back, stating, like you said, there's these terpenes, cannabinoids, flavonoids. There's a whole range that that this plant. I feel incapable of improving on the plant. I know, and I've been involved with lots of people that want to make it more stable, more transportable. Here's a concentrate, here's a product. We don't do that with our romaine lettuce or Swiss chard or celery. Generally, I mean, there probably are nutraceuticals that have dried celery in the capsule, but this plant for 34 million years was consumed as a living product, and the animals would bite it off the plant and eat it. And I don't know that we really can, if you can get a hold of a living plant, if there's a lot that you can do to improve upon that. And then but the problem was people couldn't get plants, or they're complicated. And with the discovery of sprouts, with that 4-day window, little narrow, but once you got the timing set up, once you hit that first cotyledon 10 days out, it's a manageable amount of information to have just incredible food grade, full complement material and it's delicious. I mean, you put it on your salad, your sandwich, you can blend it, and it's incredibly affordable. I mean, you look at Epidiolex, it's $30,500 a year per child for Dravet's. And
Wow.
you can go out and buy 10, a 5-pound bag. I've had actually patients that have ended up with 50-pound bags of seed. You want to make sure they're not agricultural and treated with fungicides. But if you have clean organic cannabis seed, you can produce a most amazing product on your counter that is delicious. And I've looked, like I said, I'm currently involved in a company that does the various extracts and oils, and there's a bit of a if nothing else is available, and if you're uncomfortable, you don't have a sprouting container. I mean, I've looked at, if you take a company like Toyota or something, and they want to do a carbon capture study, you can go ahead and develop a system where a company can take advantage of distributing 1 pound, 5-pound packages of seed, like say to the third world. They plant the plant, they use the structural elements, they put it in adobe, they build their houses. So you have a permanent carbon capture that creates a carbon credit. That carbon credit would pay for the production of the seeds and their distribution. And suddenly you can have like whole countries that are getting a 5-pound bag of cannabis seed, plant it, grow with it, and thatch your roof, build your house, eat the product as it comes along, and you end up with this a company being able to underwrite the distribution of the seed in terms of the capture that that seed can afford the environment, and we can heal the planet while we heal ourselves. And so, I'm so excited about cannabis as food. And the nice thing about cannabis as food is, it's available to anyone, and it can be free if it's put together right. You got someone who can kind of justify getting the carbon credit for that distribution for people that can't. I mean, if you look at what an American would pay for 5 pounds of seed, that is not really a third world option. But if you defray the profit margins and costs and shipping with the carbon capture, then suddenly, people around the world can be introduced to cannabis as a dietary essential, as a food, and other companies that are help that distribution can take the credit and essentially do it for nothing. So it's a kind of a win-win where we introduce the terpenes, the flavonoids, the cannabinoids, and there's a lot of other stuff in that plant. There's 512. I mean, every year you turn around, it gets more complex.
Okay,
So,
so doctor,
anytime.
doctor, could you share with me your story on the people in Northern California? Because I saw some videos, and it shows that you were with some people and they were picking the leaves off the plant and juicing. You guys were juicing the leaves from the plant. Can you tell me about the juicing the plant and what you saw with the people in the area there in Northern California? What were they doing with the plant?
We had one child that had a very aggressive brainstem tumor and went to Oakland Children's Hospital, was there for a year, went through chemotherapy and went through radiation, went through surgery, and was finally discharged because the tumor just kept recurring. And finally, after a year, they said, do you want the child to die here at the hospital, or you want to take the child home? There's absolutely, this tumor is just unstoppable from anything that we know. Child comes home to Northern California, and a local pediatrician who I used to put out a lot of interviews and articles and radio, and I was just like all over the place. And so I didn't really know this pediatrician very well, but she said, well, you might as well try raw cannabis. And being in Northern California, neighbors had fruit tree sized plants, and so the child was given access to a lot of cannabis, and miraculously she could down 4 to 8 ounces of cannabis juice a day. And I thought I was pretty special doing 1 ounce. Here's this little girl slamming 4 to 8 times what I was doing. But with that, she just turned her condition around, and she was on hospice. She had been sent home, and the hospice worker called the parents and said, I'm not gonna be calling you every day to ask if the child's alive. Here's your self-administered morphine. Here's your oxygen for the child. She shouldn't be in pain. There's no reason for her to be in pain. Call me anytime of the day, and I'll speak with you. And they never called her. And the hospice worker was like, or the child died and the parents are doing the morphine. I mean, what is going on in Northern California? I mean, I'm sure I'm missing something. So eventually she said, okay, I got a call. And she calls parents and she said, how's the child doing? And oh, she's fine. She's sitting here on the counter having a cheese sandwich. And the hospice worker said, she's alive and she's sitting up and she's eating. I don't think so. And she said, can I come out and do a visual on this to see if the child's still alive? And goes out there and hospice worker says, well, she looks pretty healthy to me. What have you been doing? He says, she's doing a half cup of raw cannabis juice a day. And she said, well, what does that do? I said, I don't know, but it seems to be working for her. seems to be helping. And so
that's experience too, only of course we weren't using the raw cannabis flower, we were using the extract from it. But it's such a beautiful thing to have that level of hope. It's offering people hope. It really is. And that's what we've seen. I mean, we've had people throw their arms around us and thank us for changing their lives over a plant, over a simple little plant. It's amazing.
So you guys are using the flower and you're making your products from the flower, but I think the distinction between the story is that the child had access to the leaves, and the video that I had seen was the leaves, and I had I got to thinking there's so many leaves that are probably being thrown away right now in our country in the cannabis industry. Because most people are harvesting the flowers, and for somebody who doesn't know much about the cannabis, I mean that's one of the things that those that are growing the cannabis, many people are growing it so they can smoke it and get high, or make extracts, THC extracts, so people can have a trip to the moon. But but they're throwing away the leaves. So I'm thinking to myself, imagine if all those people understood that they could get high if they wanted to, but imagine if they understood that the vegetables that they're throwing away is the most important thing that they can put in their body, which is something that I plan on sharing this video with as many friends that I can, to help people understand that if they're throwing the leaves away, if they're throwing the plant away, they're throwing away the most important food that's available to them. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I'd written an article, and the title of it was, consumer compost. Don't compost the leaves. Consume them. And it, like you said, I had 8,000 patients and 18,000 interviews, and all of them were in the cannabis industry. I mean, there was, if not for just the family, generally commercially. And so they were my instructors from day one. They're the ones that you'd mentioned, how did we get on the leaf thing? And we started out with dry leaf. And we'd just take the leaf, dry it, grind it up into a flour, and then put it in capsules. And we're doing dried leaf. And then I think it was 2007 ICRS, I think it was up in Canada, Saint Savard or something. They finally came out with this amazing presentation on the terpenes, and I knew in order to get the terpenes, we wanted to move away from the dried leaf. So that's the point at which we switched from dried leaf capsules to fresh leaf. And consuming it is so fibrous. It's it's challenging in terms of the texture, and the flavor is a little pungent. But at that point, we instead of doing dry leaf, we started juicing the leaf. And then everything kind of fast forwarded from there with studying the complexity of the juice of the plant. And then, but the problem always had been, well, I got a leaf in the spring and summer, but it's it's a temperate climate, and so for fall and winter we don't really have living plants if we're outdoor farmers. And then when we stumbled onto sprouts, it's suddenly, like a lot of people would have a 5-gallon bucket of seed out in their shop, and like, what do I do with all this seed? Sprout it and use that in the wintertime. And so they were glad to get rid of the seed, and then amazed that suddenly in November, December, February, January, they're able to have fresh leaf juice. I mean, because that particular 4-day window is very, very, very potent, and comparable with some of the 80, 90-day leaf material. So it's a very high quality, high grade, and available year round.
This is what I'm going to want to do. I have a friend of mine who has plenty of seeds, and the industry is about to have its harvest. There's going to be an abundance of seeds available. And so, what I can do for a project for this winter for myself and my family is start these sprouts. So let's can we talk a little bit about what they figured out on how to do that? And so I've got my two children, and there are three adults other than my wife and I. So that's five adults and two children that live in the home where I'm at. And so, what can I do to be able to help them with sprouts? And how do I do it? Is there any resource online that I can go to, or are we creating it right now, the how to?
There's, we're pretty much creating it because I think the cannabisinternational.org kind of went into desuetude before I got into sprouts. And so I've written a lot of articles, as when you talk about writing an article, I always flash back to, I think it was 2012, Cologne, Köln, Germany, where ICRS, and Kristen submitted her abstract on the role of cannabis in nursing. And oh my God, they were so upset that a nursing mother was going to say that cannabis was an important part of breast milk. Nearly got us. I mean, there are many people that thought we should be thrown out, and other people thought that, well, let's consider the information first. And but it was, Kristen has always kind of been out there fairly comfortable with expressing her opinion. But when you go to a very large, I mean, there's 400 members at ICRS, and pretty much everybody from Europe and South America and Asia, and they all go to this meeting. And then all of a sudden, one of the abstracts is talking about the role of cannabis in nursing mothers. They were like, we got to take that out of there. You cannot have that in. I mean, the symposium brochure was like an inch and a half thick. I mean, it was a serious tome. These are all pre-publication, really current research, what people are thinking and doing before they actually publish their articles. So, it's very
It's kind of
prestigious,
like
or at least,
it's kind of like to relate it to people. I'm kind of well, I'm gonna give it a I'm gonna make a connection here. Chris, I've got a coin around my neck I carry with me. It's a 111-year-old coin that was, I'm not sure where it was minted, but it was minted for the country of El Salvador, and this is a Central American peso, and it has an image of Christopher Columbus on here, and I'm constantly reiterating this with my family that Christopher Columbus, he was telling people that he was going to sail to the other side of the world. I'm going to go to India and then come back. And they told him, you are crazy. You're going to fall off the edge of the world, and we're never going to see you again. So, like, when we're talking about cannabis being given to children as a juice, that's the same type of shock that someone can be in. And I've had to say it over and over and try to, help ease my wife's concern just for her to take CBD. She comes from a Latin American country, and there's a lot more stigmatism still with the plant. Imagine, the 1960s in the United States type of mentality where, wow, we're not even really smoking it. We don't want our kids to smoke it. And now compare that to the United States today, where, I mean, yeah, it's legal here in Massachusetts. So there's the shock there, doctor, that I think that even those professionals had when you're talking about giving this juice to children. There's a shock. And they say, Christopher Columbus, you're going to go and you're going to die, and it's not going to work. And no, I'm not going to give you any money. Same thing.
I think, Chris, I think what's happened is I'm a little older than you are. I'm going to be 62 in another month, and so I grew up through the 60s and the 70s, and there was a lot of propaganda. I remember being in Catholic school, and the state police came into the school, and they put on an anti-drug display. Here I am, I'm probably in third or fourth grade, maybe fifth grade at that time. So when you have kids being subjected to or indoctrinated into this anti-marijuana campaign, those things really permeate society. I think we've all been kind of led down a certain path, and now that we're realizing that, hey, that path probably wasn't as truthful or as honest as it should have been, we're now realizing that this plant has been in our history, human history, all the way back. I mean, we use some Egyptian hieroglyphics to show that the cannabis leaf is in their medical, carved right into stone in their medical records. And if you look through all these other major human civilizations, cannabis was their go-to healing herb, their highest regarded healing herb. Chinese medicine, the base for the original Chinese medicine started out with cannabis. So it's a re-education process. We've been taught to question the plant, and now we're being taught to question it in a different way. So I think we're going to come around. The pendulum always swings one way and then back, right? So we're going to hit a homeostasis, so to speak, in the cannabis industry. I think within the next 5 to 10 years, cannabis is going to become a major, major component for overall health. And I think that's just going to happen naturally because research is what it is. And they're going to find out some very interesting things about different flavonoids and cannabinoids and terpenoids. And we're going to come to realize that this isn't the plant that we need to demonize. We need to embrace it and realize its potential, not just as a food or a medicine, but as the doctor alluded. And you could be making houses out of this stuff. We can sequester carbon with it. I mean, if you want to remediate soil and take radiation even out of soil, cannabis is the plant to do it with. So we're learning a lot, and I think you're going to see, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make a projection. I'm going to try to say something prophetic. I think you're going to see several multi-billion-dollar cannabis industries form over the next several years, and they're going to be huge powerhouses. If I'm not mistaken, I think BMW is already making body panels out of cannabis fiber, which is 10 times stronger than steel. So imagine the safety features you can build into vehicles or aircraft or other even military applications. It's unbelievable what this plant can do.
So one thing I do tell people when we have consultation, and it is also on our instructions, we have a good 6 pages of instructions. And I do say that people do not need supplements because between the food and the cannabis, that is all you need. You don't need anything else.
The vitamin load is the mineral load is very, very high in these extracts. So why duplicate your efforts? I mean, if you're missing a certain vitamin, potentially maybe you have to supplement with that, but there's so much vitamins and minerals in this plant naturally. What a wonderful supplement.
Yeah, I don't like anything
I'm going to interject something very awesome. And it's amazing how this is synchronizing because you mentioned the word supplementation. And right before that, I was immediately looking up something that I posted yesterday that I found as far as the legal framework of what's happening. And I'm going to share a screen, and it's going to show on my we're gonna be able to see my Facebook page, and let me see if I can get this to come up. 1 second. And that's not the way I want. 1 second here. Let's see. Screen sharing. I see now. Okay. Can you guys see this? Or it's not? Is it showing my Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay, so it's showing my Facebook
I didn't
page.
see how you did screen sharing. I wanted to.
I can show you. It's at the bottom. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the Facebook, or not the Facebook, but the control. And I think I have my screen hidden. 1 second here. Yeah, my video is off. I'm starting my video. I'm going to go to my video settings. Yeah, we're good there. Because I'm wanting to make sure that I'm showing this on the live stream Yes. So it is on the live stream, and yeah, we're both learning this, doctor. This is our first run. We can do some more practices on the share, on how to share things during this week and screen sharing. But this is my main page, and this is the what it looks like right now. And Christopher High, and down here, I was just reading this last night. I tagged your name in it, Doctor, Doctor William Courtney, and there was something amazing had happened here that the bill to regulate CBD as a dietary supplement has been introduced to Congress. This is at hightimes.com.
Wonderful.
And inside there, it's not just CBD. You were going to find that it's not just mentioning CBD. It also says hemp derived products. So, what's happening, we're going to read the article. It says a bill that would allow CBD derived from hemp to be sold as a dietary supplement was introduced in the House of Representatives last week in a bid to jumpstart an industry hampered by inaction from the FDA. Imagine that. The FDA would hamper it. Uh, well, I'm not going to go into that subject, but people who are involved in the history of cannabis, that's no surprise there. So the bipartisan measure, the Hemp and Hemp Derived CBD Consumer Protection and Market Stabilization Act, was introduced on Friday by the Democratic uh, Representative Kurt Schrader Oregon, and Representative Morgan Griffith, a Republican from Virginia. So Virginia is an amazing state. I like Virginia, and I love Oregon. I love all the places, but those are really cool areas, especially Virginia with what they're pushing forward in the Farm Bill, how they help push that forward. Hemp was historically an important crop for Virginia farmers, and dietary supplements made from it do not possess dangerous addictive qualities. Nevertheless, from current state of regulation creates confusion about its legal issues. I join this bipartisan bill to provide certainty for hemp farmers that the crop may find legal uses. So when you two are talking about, I'm going to go ahead and end the share there. When we're talking about uh, we're talking about cannabis as a dietary essential, the needs for it in our food, and we're talking about supplementation. I'm trying to figure out how I can stop the share. There we go. Stop the share. So there we're back with you two. Yeah, yeah, we're back with you two there. All right, and
So I mean,
so I just want to say,
if you
I
look at
just
the
want to
role of
say,
cannabis prior, like
I'm just going to say one thing, that for people who don't understand what the 18 Farm Bill is, I explain it like this, and then I'm going to give you the mic, Doctor. That from in my perspective, as a 36-year-old, and grew up in Missouri and has been watching cannabis for the better part of 20 years, the 2018 Farm Bill is like a cannonball that has hit the the prohibition ship, and it's as if the ship is now capsized and it is sinking very quick. The 2018 Farm Bill was what, yeah, that's the way to put it. It's a cannonball that hit the side of the prohibition ship and it's capsized and it's sinking very quickly. So, Patty and Bruce, when you're saying the next 5 to 10 years, yes, for sure, that's my conclusion, Doctor.
and so before the anti-cannabis movement that took shape, cannabis was found in 140 pharmaceutical medications in the U.S. pharmacopoeia. So it was widely used, well established. Then Anslinger comes out with his mission, and through his efforts, he got it put into the United Nations 1961, anti-drug use act. And so he's the one that personally made it illegal. That created it's being removed from the pharmaceutical industry. And it was like one of the major crimes of the century what Anslinger was able to extract the substance from medicine and turn it into a crime. And now we're back just trying to get it back to being recognized that it has, when you understand its role in intracellular regulation, you understand why it has so many benefits. I mean, it's the basis of cell function, and health or disease arises at that cellular level. And so your ability to prevent really is based at that cellular level. Your ability to restore is based at that cellular level. And so the idea that, that the person can include cannabis sprouts. I mean, when they could go to the grocery store and buy a pound of cannabis sprouts and put it in their salad and sandwich, and as long as they know that, if you heat it, yeah, you're going to change it, but you generally don't heat your wheatgrass sprouts. You generally don't heat your lettuce. I mean, they just need to know that you take this product and you heat it and you create an effect that you may not want, but it's a relatively benign side effect, but it is one that is rejected and is disavowed, and many people don't want to participate in it. But as long as you don't chemically alter it, it really belongs in the grocery store. It belongs in the food line at the grade school, at the junior high, the high school. I mean, it is as it moves forward with its recognition. When you move it from CBD to CBD acid, and you move into THC and CBG and CBN and CBC, you end up with a very complex food substance that is, the evidence is settled. It's just a matter of dealing with those in power that haven't reviewed the literature and are clinging on to the Anslinger evil weed stuff, and the kids are going to be ruined. They're going to lose their motivation. They're going to be couch potatoes, and they just have this mental thing that was created and imbued into the culture. And prior to that, it was widely accepted as being incredibly important, and we're just
Absolutely
get out from underneath the oppression.
Yeah, the term marijuana was, that was kind of new. Everyone knew it as hemp, and what a way to create. Man has come up with a new word and confuse everybody. And Anslinger had a lot of help. He had a lot of influence, as we know. There were a lot of very wealthy, prominent families that hemp competed directly with DuPont Chemical with their synthetic fibers. Their direct competitor was the hemp industry. And you had, Standard Oil, which is Rockefeller medicine, right? That's the model that we use today for medical. You probably went through Rockefeller training when you trained to become a doctor. And those standards pushed the cannabis industry out of business because they competed directly with those businessmen. And like any good businessman, I don't blame them for what they did, because they were just trying to secure their place, right? Any good businessman would try to do that. But in the process of doing that, they ignorantly wiped out one of our best health supplements that we could ever take. And this is why we need to re-educate people and redirect them down a more scientific path, not an emotional path. Because prohibition of cannabis was totally emotional. There was nothing scientific about it at all. It was an emotional propaganda campaign.
It was about money.
Yeah.
So what do I got to do to grow some sprouts?
There are several sites online where you can buy cannabis seed, and it ranges from like the Hippie General Store, HIPPIE General Store. You can get a pound of indica or sativa, or a half a pound. There are other organic health food websites where you can buy 5 pounds or 10 pounds. Like I said, you just got to be certain that you don't stumble onto agricultural cannabis, which has been treated with fungicide if you're going to commercially grow it. So you want to be certain that it's dietary, not agricultural, because that would obviously be you bring in 50 pounds and it's all pink and you go, oh my gosh, what do I do now? But other than that, as long as you know that it's food grade, it's pretty straightforward. You put a couple tablespoons in. The germination rate will vary. You don't want to. You want to treat the seed as you would. Essentially, you just follow wheatgrass protocols, meaning, keep it in a cool, dark place. Don't leave it in a hot window, or because that'll have an adverse effect on the germination rate. And then the big one is a lot of people will jump on it early because you're going to want to grow it another week longer than wheatgrass. So if you're comfortable with sprouting, you've done mung beans and those other things, you're going to, at an earlier time you'll
Well,
start eating it, and
I've never
it's
done
delicious.
I've never done any sprouting at all. I do have access to healthy seeds from the same friend of mine who helped me with, who sent me the care package. So I've got access to plenty of seeds. I have some space inside of my home, so I'm thinking I'm going to want to sprout these inside of some type of container, or I want to get online and I'm going to figure out how to sprout plants. And when you say that, just to get clarification, I'm going to grow them only for a certain amount of days and then I'm going to eat those.
Yeah, so if you go to most grocery stores in the U.S., you can buy a quart jar that's got a stainless steel screen and a little kind of lid that's got a hole in it. And the main thing is you soak them overnight on the first day, and then you rinse them once or twice a day. Big thing is that you want to incline the bottle so that the water drains out. You don't want to leave them standing in water. You want them to fully drain. And they have little wooden racks. And so you take these quart jars, put in a couple of tablespoons, and it can vary. If you've got a good 100% germination, it's going to take less. If you get 60, 70%, it's going to take a little bit more. So maybe as the seeds deteriorate, it'll take a little bit more to fill the jar. But essentially, main thing is keep them rinsed, keep them clean, and drain them adequately. And then when you see the first two little bit of greens, cannabis is a dicotyledon. There are monocots and dicots. The monocots have a single little green leaf. Cannabis is a dicot. So you'll see two little green leaves. As soon as you see those, then you begin your 10-day count. And so that first little tiny plant grows up into a little microgreen, in the first 10 days. And then I've dedicated to reproduce that Eastern European study to confirm that it's between day 10 and 14 where this spike is. Currently, I'm just kind of basing it on the study that I saw, but I'd love to reproduce it to confirm it. But essentially, once you see that first little bit of green, on the outside of the bottle, on a little tab or on a piece of tape on the bottle, write that date down. And 10 days later is when you would start taking them out and put them in your salad, put them in your sandwich. You just eat a handful of them. They're really quite delicious.
How many should I be eating every day, just as an adult?
I've based strictly on guesswork. Would like to do at least 1 cup and even 2. If you got a medical condition that is significant, I'd move up to 2 cups. If you're just at your age and your health, 1 cup a day is going to give you a lot of cannabinoids. Like I said, the body only metabolizes anywhere from 1/60th of the amount that you consume to 1/240th of the amount that you consume. So the body really sequesters. It grabs a hold of these and puts them into adipocytes, fatty cells, and storage for the long term. So the body eliminates very little per day. So that means if you eat it 2 days in a row, you're going to have 59, let's say, micrograms from the day before, plus the 60 you consume that day. The third day, you're going to have 58, 59, and 60. The fourth day, 57, 58, 59, and 60. So you end up building quite a reserve until you hit day 60, and that would be the time at which the amount that you metabolize equals the amount that you consume. So you hit a plateau, and the body peaks in the amount that'll be in your body at in the second month. So there's a lot of benefits that come in early, and they continue to build, and then you reach the total body saturation. And the saturation is nice because it allows you to take whatever seed is available. And as long as you're not trying to treat an acute condition that's in a critical stage where you want a particular ratio, say you're having a Crohn's or ulcerative colitis flare, then you're going to want to go to a 75-25 plant where you can get 75% CBD, 20% THC, and you know that you're going to get that ratio. But if you're not in an acute medical condition, if you're not going to therapeutic use, if you're going dietary, I believe almost any seed is going to provide you a varied ratio, but all of those cultivars will build and build and build until they're all saturated over time. In the first week, you're going to have the saturation of the ratio of that plant, but as you move forward, cannabichromene, CBC or cannabichromene variant with a 3 or 4 or 5 carbon tail, those are going to build and build, and pretty soon all of these cannabinoids will reach their saturation point at which suddenly they're actually metabolizing them as quickly as you consume them. So when
Cup
it's
a day.
food, you're not going after the
Cup a day. How many
yeah, half a cup
seeds
a
is it
day
gonna
would be
take for me to fill a cup a day?
I've seen about a tablespoon will do a quart jar, and you can divide that quart jar into a cup or 2 cups. If you got a condition that you're wanting to kind of have an impact on, I would move it up to a half of a quart or 2 cups a day. There's no problem. You could take the whole quart, but then it just becomes a matter of planning, spacing, and that type of thing.
Right.
But to begin with, as strictly just a minor dietary supplementation, 1 cup is pretty significant. You got any
Tablespoon
kind of
will do a
condition,
quart.
go to 2 cups.
A tablespoon will do a quart.
Yeah, well, 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on the germination rate of that. How old the seeds are, how viable they are, what they're, how much of them sprout.
So how
So
many
there'll be some variation,
tablespoons?
and it'll become.
How many tablespoons am I going to want to have set up? How many? I mean, I'm going to want to have this. I'm going to want to be doing this regularly. We're going to be working out the details on my routine, and we're going to be documenting it. I've got a page that I created called Christopher High's Journey to Juicing Cannabis Raw, and I think we're going to change that towards Christopher High's Journey to eating cannabis raw cannabis sprouts, because
Because when you juice, you're ejecting a pulp, and that pulp is tremendously beneficial. Heat it, and that pulp is psychoactive. But that pulp, there's a lot of my early videos were all about juicing. Everybody had all these plants. We were growing 6-foot plants. We were juicing. My father was out. We were juicing. So juicing was where we were at. But then when we moved over to sprouts, you no longer are ejecting the amount of viable plant material that you do when you're juicing leaves. So sprout, you consume the entirety of the plant. It is a microgreen with leaves, but it's more accessible to everyone, because everyone's got a space on their kitchen counter to put a couple of quart jars.
Right.
So
I've got
everyone, an
space for
80-year-old woman, an 80-year-old woman on the 34th floor of a high-rise in Los Angeles can be a sprout farmer. I mean, comfortably and
Nice.
easily and competently.
Nice.
Everyone
This
can
is
do
what I
it.
was looking for. This is the information that I was looking for.
Yeah,
Sprouting.
so and it just allows you to, for pennies, just step right up to the front of the line in terms of, I mean, it's if you buy a 20-pound bag out of one of those health food, and I'll get the websites and provide those. I mean, so you could go there. You buy 20 pounds of seed, that lasts probably your whole neighborhood, for quite a period of time, like
Nice.
maybe a year, more than a year, 2 or 3 years.
I think I can come
but
up
that
with
price
20 pounds of seed.
Yeah, and
I'm gonna love
that
my
would
neighbor
serve
as
all
myself.
pretty much. Yeah, and you can give them a pound of seed and say, here, try this, put the sprouts in your salad, and it's delicious. And by the way, a lot of things will be doing better over time, and you'll little early arthritis, you got a family history of this or that, and you put it off 5, 10, 20 years. In fact, it never really came. It brings the prevention of disease into everyone's home, which is a gift to give, that keeps on giving, as they would say.
Now, Patty and Bruce, you guys, like I said, when we started off, we didn't know where we were going to go with this. And I appreciate your contribution into this. And I understand that, I'm not for sure where have you guys ever heard of the sprouting thing? I mean, I don't want to dig too much to where I'm affecting your brand and with your marketing and with what you guys are doing. So I'm somewhat conscious of that at the same time. But is this something that you guys have heard about in your journey?
Well, we've heard about juicing the flowers, and that I'm in total agreement with, and I'm not saying I'm not in agreement with the sprouting. The one thing that I am curious about is have we done a chemical analysis of these sprouts just to
The
see
seeds.
what, my concern is if we can get good organic seeds and then we do sprout them, I would love, I mean, I'd even pay for this. You guys send me a sample of this juice, I'll send it off to Acacia Labs,
Well,
which
then let
is
me
the
do
medical.
that. Let me do that.
Yeah,
I'm also in the Boston area, and so there's lots of I mean, it's like the modern Alexandria. There's universities everywhere, and plenty of people who are very educated and interested in doing what's best for everybody. So you, if I can get you a cup of juice, you would send it off to some.
absolutely. I'll pay for it on my dime. I want to see what's in it because
Do
we're
it.
always looking for better avenues, correct? I mean,
Right.
that's our primary goal. We're not in this for the money. We're in this for the research and where we
Very
can take
nice.
people, right? Okay.
Very nice.
That's my primary drive. And if I can, I'll gladly pay for this. We'll do a full analysis on it. So you'll know
Yeah.
whether or not you have heavy metals in these seed stocks. I want to know what you're consuming.
Very good.
Let's be as clean as possible for you and let's understand what's in it. That's where I'm at.
So,
Yeah.
oh,
A
go ahead.
nutritional analysis would be something that I've always wanted to put together, and I've looked into it, and because like you said, there's so much going on in the plant besides a limited focus on the cannabinoids. It's just good to have that background, and the question is this Eastern European study that identified this day 10 to 14 is that, can we reproduce that spike? So I would like to see if we could do a study from like, once you see those first little green dicotyledons, I'd probably begin at day 7. It's going to be low, day 7, day 8, day 9, and then theoretically there's a spike that goes between day 10, 11 until 14, and then 15, 16 to see if it does disappear again. I mean, if you look at most studies that looked at cannabis, they say the first month is, there's no cannabinoids. But, and overall, there's no cannabinoids the last 2 weeks, first 2 weeks. But there's this 4-day window, according to this one study, that needs to be reproduced because if
That's
and the reason that I think it's serious is because the people were interested in psychoactivity.
I'm gonna let
You
you
know,
guys before I'm gonna let you guys continue to chat. I'm gonna take another back seat, and we're gonna do this, Patty and Bruce and Doctor. I'm gonna get a hold of these seeds, and we're gonna do this stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and put myself on the back seat, allow you guys to talk more about this topic, and we're probably gonna wrap up within the next, well, as long as you guys aren't pressed for time. I'm not wanting to set any type of standard on our time limits or anything with the show. So but basically we'll be wrapping up with this, and if you guys want to talk for another 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or even an hour, we can continue to host that. We can change subject, we can go to another topic, because what we're doing, remember, we're doing this together as a group, and we're creating Cannabis Library TV. So this is an online archive for other people. So I'm gonna let you guys intermingle, and I'm gonna take a back seat for a few minutes. And so, does that sound good for you guys?
That's fine.
Good.
we love your input though, so listen carefully and join in when you got comments.
Oh, I will. I'm also going to take this opportunity to. Yeah. Anyway, I've got a nature's calling type of thing here.
Yeah. You go take care of that.
Okay.
That's We'll get you a Texas condom catheter. That way you can kind of stay on the show.
Well, I do have a commercial driver's license. I worked in the oil field, and yeah, commercial drivers are, it's good to have a bottle with you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. And so as I was saying, they were looking at this. They were looking at the sprout as it moved out, and it was marijuana chemistry. It was a very old book, but they were referring. What they were interested in is getting high, and so they're the sine qua non is is it psychoactive yet? And so from the tenor of the whole book, and they did like 5,000 analyses. I mean, so I'm wanting to believe that their chemistry, while it was, not an HPLC, it was still pretty reliable basic CBD THC. There was heat involved in the analysis, but they were analyzing everything across the country, state by state, farm, ditchweed. I mean, they're just, there's an incredible mayhem of analysis. So my sense is that the study should be reproducible, but it certainly warrants the reproduction. And if it turns out that there is a 4-day window that falls into the sprouting area, it then allows people to to have access to really high quality cannabinoids, and for someone to step up and put it in the grocery store. I mean, if you package it at day 8 or 9 and put it in the grocery store, you would be consuming it during that window. And I'd like to see how tight that window is. Like an analysis that showed, is it a really steep slope, which is what the implication was. Like I said, the implication is that you're going to get high, so that you're at 10,000 micrograms on the THC score, and if the THC is there, then you're probably dragging all the cannabinoids up in that spike. But it's worthy to find out. Is there CBG? Is there CBC? Is this a full spectrum rise? And and it does go back to zero. Yeah, I mean, you want the variance on them all. Go ahead. Sorry.
Are you practicing now? Do you practice medicine?
I have a California. Yeah, I have a California license, and I have, and I do consultations, and I now have a bit more of a global practice. People from England and South Africa and Asia, and members, of very prestigious people. So it's shifting character. I am on a very isolated. I mean, this picture in the background. That's my wood shop and house and chicken coops, and we live out in the middle of a rainforest, very, very, very remote.
So are you moving away, you think, from the tinctures and the paste to go straight to the plant, ingesting the plant? And if you were going to do that, how would you be helping people that are, like, how would you help people if you had to ship it to them, say?
Essentially the seed ships very easily, and there's like, Canada is just 100,000 tons of seed. So there's a lot of seed out there. If you buy it by the train car load, it's going to be very affordable. The cost to put out 1-pound bags out of a train car, like I said, someone like Toyota could step up and recover their costs on the backside from carbon sequestration, and more or less they initiate the ball rolling, and then they get their money back. So it costs them nothing to push the ball off the cliff. But the idea being, let's target a third world country where people grow their own food almost 100% of the time. So you pick a country that if you don't grow it, you don't eat it. People living, there's 1 billion people living on $1 a day, another 1 billion living on $2 a day. They're not buying anything. And so if they get a pound of seed, they suddenly got thatch. They can take care of their outbuildings, their roof. They got structural materials that are available, which, like I said, supports the launching of such a program. And then we say, well, while you're at it, try some of the leaf. But the sprout thing is such a step up over the leaves, if we can confirm the chemistry, because the fiber content of leaf, is like they make 2-inch ropes that are big enough to hold shipping liners to the dock. I mean, that fiber is formidable, particularly when you're trying to chew on it or get it out of your teeth or whatever. When you move to the sprout, you kind of reduce that fiber content in terms of palatability, which is nice. And also the fact that you don't, for 10 years, we had to grow the plant to get the leaf. And a lot of people could not do that. They have to convert a bathroom, and they got lights. And if you want to keep it in veg, then it's a commitment to transformers and lights. And then you get vape smells if you're in a place where the neighborhood doesn't really want to smell the terpenes kind of floating out of your bathroom. And the sprout thing is just, it's odor free, it fits on your counter. You don't have to be able to pick up a big pot and move plants. And
that's too, that's happening, the microgreen industry. So they're selling You can get microgreen kits now. You can order them online. So it's a great way, a great thing.
So in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
practice, your job, whatever you're doing here, do you promote products to other areas of the world, or is it just research that you do?
Well, the island used to be a tourist base that we would have 2 or 3 of these large cruise liners come in with 5,000 people per boat. But after COVID, they locked the island down. Boats are not coming in. So the island is hurting horribly because, you know, many people would buy a van and they would give people tours, and then there was people at the pier that would sell goods, you know, so you had tourist artifacts at the beach. And you had the people coming to restaurants, and maybe, you know, so a lot of the, maybe 30% of the economy came from tourism, and that has disappeared. And so I've been advocating strongly for the island to become a destination. You know, I actually prefer it to be a product shipped out, just because if you're bringing people in, we don't have the means to control a hotspot. You know, and if you look at the distribution of the UK has done really good studies on what percentage of their COVID came from, you know, 50 countries. You know, the little pie chart showing all the different countries that, and how they contributed cases to them. So while I'm reluctant to do that, and you know, the vaccinations for SARS and MERS were not effective, and it's not effective for the common cold. So all this fantasy about it being effective for this coronavirus is really, you know, people wanting to make $1 trillion on a vaccine, and you pick up 30-40%.
Yeah.
But if you look at the role of cannabis in COVID, I mean, the ACE2 enzyme is the enzyme that's both attachment and entry, and cannabis is right there in terms of reducing, you know, reducing that infection. But that's the same way it reduces so many infections. You know, it facilitates the body's immune system, the body's function, whether it's production or you know, functions such as contraction or neuronal firing or whatever aspect you're looking at. It's in the middle of enhancing the biochemical basis behind that, and so the immune system's got a lot of pay, or, you know, a lot of, you know, limelight these days. But, you know, if that's gone, cannabis as a dietary essential works. I mean, the reduction is reducing the size of myocardial infarction by 58%. If there was a
Yeah.
if there was a medicine that had that function, it would be, you know, you would want to buy stock yesterday. I mean, you know, so it's really, you know, the $2.8 trillion gorilla's got its foot on the throat of prevention, and it's, you know, probably you would hard to track it, connect it together. But if these benefits were coming from a pharmaceutical drug, they would be on the front pages of the New York Times and all over the internet. And,
You know, we have people who, well, we have doctors that promote our stuff. So that's kind of wonderful. And then we do have people that have gone from 30% heart usage right up to 100%. Really quickly. Like within 6 months, they're right back up to 100%. They don't need any of their meds. We get people off all their meds. Like some people, 16 meds they're on.
Don't want to say that too loud, you know, because that's where the 2.8 trillion, and I guarantee you $2.8 trillion, you've got budgets for risk management. You are a risk that needs to be managed. $2.8 trillion is, you know, is a frightening contender. You're in the ring with, you know, some heavy hitters, and
Right.
when you start, you know, I've had warrants for my arrest. I mean,
the way that we can approach this is we shouldn't be intimidating at all. We should be working in conjunction with these groups. I mean, GW Pharmaceutical has spent a lot of money to develop their different drugs like Epidiolex and Setivex and those, you know, dronabinol and all those other, quote, marijuana drugs. I see a really big working in conjunction with these companies. I know that they have certain criteria.
I don't see it.
Well, I'm hoping. I'm always hoping. Okay.
I submitted an abstract in 2012 to ICRS, And it was like I was blown away by the efficacy with kids with Dravet. And so this was 4 or 5 families and the results of a CBD, but in a matrix of a whole plant, a whole cannabis oil. And it, that article, that abstract, I've gone to ICRS for 4 or 5, 6, 7 years. I'd be going to Germany and then going to Israel and going to, Scotland and all over the US. It would be 1 year US, 1 year Europe. And so we're going back and forth. Been there a lot. I submitted an abstract of the most critical research I had done with my life, and it was rejected. They wouldn't even give me the right to post a poster. They weren't going to give me 1 page in this 1.5-inch text where my abstract would be in there, because it would become public domain. But at that ICRS, they were soliciting for docs and pre-docs to study the relationship between CBD and Dravet. And by November, they opened up the orphan drug status. They got all kinds of FDA fast tracking. And so Epidiolex came from my article on the CBD and Dravet that they rejected, and so that it would not become public domain. It was not published, and it was open. They opened up a ton of patents on that product, and Epidiolex is just 9 months out from what the study that I had submitted, and never was circulated to the community. And so I've got these are, and they're, like you said, these are small toes. They're in the field that want to benefit financially, and they want to make products. But in general, when you step outside into the major pharmaceutical industries, the Bayers that are buying up companies and trying to figure out how to leverage this, you got to be really careful with talking about how many medications people stop using when they went that direction, because they're still heavily invested and they got 20-year patents, and they got products that they want to take to greening, and you're coming along and saying you got this patient off of that medicine and that medicine and that medicine and that medicine, and they're doing better than they were on all these medications. They'll drop a helicopter. You've heard stories about how many doctors get taken out. I mean, it becomes a point where you're not contributing to the common weal.
Right.
And so, be careful.
The reason we fly under the radar, and I don't know. We can't. We have to say what we say, and we are normally careful, but I mean, we're just 2 people. We're not doctors. That's the thing. We're not doctors. We're just regular old people that are pushing cannabis. That's all. Nothing else.
And pushing CBD is a nice, safe kind of push, because there's so much out there. I mean, every now and then the FDA says we're going to call it all back, and we're really upset, and they know that it's impacting their primary people that support their campaigns, and so there's got to be some fight going on as to how do we get out of this, and how do we stop this, and where's this all going, and how bad is this going to get, and and I'm sure both of our names get raised when they're trying to figure out how do we limit the damage. And you get people out there like us saying, oh, they got off all their medications. They go, oh no, this is it's time for a single car accident on this group of people. They're not helping. We could buy another 10 years if you don't get too articulate.
Right. Well, I think there are so many companies out there, and they really, I mean, I hear time and time again. I told my doctor I was taking this CBD. This helped me so much, and I don't want to take my medications anymore. And the doctor's like, you just got better. It's not the CBD. The CBD didn't do anything. I don't believe that. I don't believe CBD does anything but pain. And we do wound therapy. Have you had any experience with wound therapy?
With wound therapy, I do like the WCO. I mean, I do like a whole cannabis oil just because it's more topical. If you've got an abrasion, a lesion, it's easier to put on. If you have some fungal infections of the hair, then the whole plant can be useful. But it's and I was working with someone who was trying to make, a bandage that would include, a WCO as part of that. And so, local application can be useful, but my whole primary focus has been kind of large whole body conditions where, it's internal organs, it's diabetes, heart disease, ischemia related cancers, things where you want to get in and, get the whole immune system kind of
So
dialed
this
up.
that we have literally will close up a wound to where you, first of all, as soon as you put the paste on, you don't have any pain. The pain goes away right away. And then we tell everyone to not put water on it. Whatever you do not get it wet, because we feel as though water has bacteria in it and it deteriorates the healing of the wound. So you put this directly into the wound, burn, cut, scrape, whatever you've got going on there. Skin cancer, of course, we do that. And then within days, literally, this is healed.
It's healing.
It's
It's
so
well
fast.
well into the healing. I could show you pictures. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe let me show you something.
But so, like, my cousin got into a car accident. He was on a bike and the car hit him, and it was awful. Like, his whole face was completely road rash.
Terrible.
It was terrible, and you cannot see the scars. I sent him a tube and I said, smear it all over, and he has no scars now. And it was, I think, from the time of the terribleness to the no scar was less than 2 weeks.
And an area that I don't think I've mentioned today is the whole plant as a chew, where we start out using primarily leaves. We're looking at sprouts. The sprouts don't have the texture that you need for a chew product. So the problem with leaves is they're harder to get, meaning you got to have a living plant, and that takes a lot of skills and stress. I mean, theoretically, you go to the grocery store and buy a pound of cannabis leaf, when it gets to that level. But you take that leaf, you julienne cut it into long little, 1/8 inch, 3-inch long little, kind of pieces of leaf material, roll it up into a ball and put it between your cheek and jaw. The initial thing is a little bit peppery because, the terpenes are very potent. But after you've done it for a week, it's kind of like, well, no, I kind of like it. The first time it's like, whoa, that's a lot of pepper.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that the saliva softens it, and then it settles in. And then every once in a while, you just take your cheek and squeeze it a little bit. You squeeze that ball against your jaw, and it'll put out a burst of the terpene cannabinoids. And the thing about that approach is that when you absorb all that in the oral mucosa, you bypass the liver in the sense that only 10% of the venous blood that comes from the oral cavity is shunted to the liver where it's metabolized. When you when you take it into your intestines, 90% of what is ingested is run through the liver and is metabolized, and only 10% kind of can get around the liver. So the oral, when you put it in the mouth and you leave it there for 2 to 3 hours and then replace it every 2 to 3 hours, you end up drizzling those terpenes and cannabinoids in a way that goes directly into the venous system and is metabolized so slowly that you get a very long half-life from the raw cannabis chew that you wouldn't get if you're ingesting it, and it is absorbed by the intestine. So there's and not only that, then and particularly if you're talking about viral infections, you're saturating the oral pharyngeal cavity with the THC, ultra low dose THC that upregulates the ACE2 inhibitor and interferes with viral attachment and entry. And so it's a real ideal way, because that's, a lot of viral load that comes in. It can come in through the hand, but if you're trying to do a little bit of hygiene, if you're bumping elbows and bumping shoulders and not handshaking, then it comes from the oral pharyngeal cavity. And so that ability to gird the loin at that point of entry with raw cannabis, for 2 to 3 hours, really puts the person in a very strong, saturated position to kind of minimize COVID-19 or MERS or SARS or whatever else you have out there, Ebola.
Can you
It's just
see me
it's a
now?
good thing.
Oh,
Yeah, we got
And hello.
Hi. I'm back, and I was wondering, should I let them know that I'm back and interrupt them?
Oh, no,
What
popped right
should I
up.
do? And I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm back inside the house. The ladies they're out right now, the girls and mom and grandma. So I've got some time inside the home. Not for sure how
I am
long.
in the red zone. I'm on the low battery. I know your Mac is gonna close. I'm about to disappear electronically.
Mm.
Um, so
I have
you guys
a
can continue to chat and we can
too as
pick
well.
this up.
Well, I think what we'll do is we can end this, and if you guys want to meet back up next Sunday at noon for episode 2.
That sounds good to me. I just want to go before I crash the computer. It gets upset when I drive it into the wall. So I got to go quickly. And next Sunday sounds good to me. It's been very nice meeting the two of you and whoever you are, Christopher, Mr. High.
I don't even know
Just
who.
call you Mr. High.
Yeah, there's just some guy who just I don't even know who this guy is.
Okay, so I've got to go really quick, or I'm gonna burn
Talk to you
right out
later,
here.
Doctor.
So have a good week.
Thanks.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you.
And wow, so amazing, you two.
That was cool.
Very good.
We learned a lot, which was lovely. We love to learn things about cannabis. It's fantastic. I'm sure we're going to start doing the sprouts as well. Most likely we'll sell them in our store. And can get kits and sell them on our website and do all that.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to juice the cannabis as well.
We've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah,
Chris.
we would love to know about getting the seeds and the juice and all of this. Yeah.
Golly Green.
Golly Green.
Okay.
Golly Green from the Golly River.
Yeah, actually, it is from the Golly Valley in West Virginia.
We've been there. Beautiful.
It's gorgeous there.
We love it.
Look up Golly Green and talk to my friend and get the seeds. That's where I'm going to get my seeds. Please don't buy all of them. They might have.
We won't. Don't worry. Yeah, that sounds. And one thing I wanted to say about the American Shaman, we spent a lot of money on that bottle and for anxiety or whatever you're doing. And our bottle is $60 for 2,000 milligrams. And we also.
This is twice.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And we also have a compassionate care discount if you have cancer, or if you are low income, or if you
first responders, former military. We really want to honor our vets and our police.
We only charge $45 for that, and so $45 for a 2,000 milligram bottle of CBD is unheard of in the entire world. You cannot get it anywhere. We are the only ones.
I'm gonna pop your bottle just because we're creating a library, and it's not to anyway. I'm just gonna pop the balloon there. This friend of mine, Golly Green, he was selling. Okay, so here's the cool story behind this. He never made any tincture before I came into the picture with understanding that he was doing this business. And I said to him, look, bro, full spectrum CBD tincture was what worked for me big time. And you have plenty of flower and you should make your own tincture. He says, I've heard about that. Tell me everything you can. And so I shared with him everything I could freely and openly. And he made this bottle. This is actually, he sold almost all of them within the first week. And he has a heart similar with you all. You guys are doing the best that you can in maintaining your business. he is able to, I'm not for sure if he raised his prices yet, but when I bought this bottle from him, he charged $30,
And how many milligrams is it?
1,000.
So it's more expensive than, no,
It's the same price.
It's just, well, ours
It
is
is.
60 for 2,000 milligrams, so it's the same price. Actually, ours is cheaper because we give it for $45 if you have a compassionate care discount.
But it gets better. We do, let me explain what we do for
See?
clinics. We do this for private nurses, for
Just
doctors
wait.
who want to use it.
Just wait, there's more.
There is, and we do this for a reason because, and this is one of the bad things about the oncology industry has bankrupted many families. We get a lot of people where their oncologists have given up, and so the next natural alternative that these people can go to is cannabis, right?
Yep.
So a lot of these people, unfortunately, have very little money left because their cancer treatments in the past have bankrupted them. And we realize this. So one of our biggest things when we developed our company was, how can we get this to people at the lowest possible cost, at the highest possible concentrations in purity? That was our focus right out of the chute. And I think we nailed it because we can do a 240, we call this a kilo deal. We can do 240 bottles and we can drop that price down to $29 and change.
Yeah.
So that is
That's
a really wonderful thing that we can do for people. And we white label.
I think there's a reason why you guys were recommended to me. Yeah, you guys are known on the online world, Facebook world. You guys have a reputation, and so it is a small community, the cannabis industry. I'm not linked up with everybody, but you guys are known of in definitely the circle that I was an influence with. So you guys are creating products that work. I've seen some of the testimonials. I've went to your website. I've read some of the posts that you create, Patty, on your Facebook page, and I've watched how people respond. And you guys are amazing. You're rocking and rolling with this, and you're making huge impacts in people's lives in a way that I don't know of anybody who's doing at the level that you guys are. I'm sure there might be, but you guys are definitely helping pave the way in the industry. And you might not know that, but maybe you do. But as far as on the being as an outsider looking in with what you guys are doing, as a consumer viewpoint, it's actually very substantial. And so I want to tell you guys that you guys are doing a really good job.
We really try. Our hearts are really in this. Again, we're not in this for the money.
Right.
We're in this to really help people. I could have stayed retired. Patty could have stayed retired. But like I said, once you see this, you can't unsee it. And we got involved because of Patty's mom's cancer.
Mhm.
And personally, again, with my father passing from cancer, my grandmother, and they all died at our house. My mom was an angel, took care of all of our family members. So this is very, I get choked up a little bit talking about it. So this is important to me.
Right. You
Yeah.
want to help prevent people from suffering. You want to
Yeah.
end the cycle. You want to make an impact in people's lives. You realize that you have a position that you can fill, filling in a gap to help end suffering in people's lives. And that's your motivation. That's your reward. That's what you're going with.
I say nobody dies on my watch.
Yeah.
Well, none of us are getting out of here alive, but
But if I help it,
Well,
you're not going anywhere.
Well, at least extend that life if possible and make it a higher quality of life.
exactly.
That's what's really important because, certain cancers are very painful. Some cancers aren't.
Mhm.
But for the people who have watched people wither away from painful cancers, it's a terrible, terrible thing to see your loved ones waste away.
It's a hard thing to watch.
Right.
So back to your friend's CBD. Is it CO2 extracted?
No, I helped him. I brought him up to speed with solvent extraction.
Right. So we don't do solvent extraction.
Yeah, you
We
guys are
only
a step
do.
above. Mhm.
Yeah, we want it to be as clean as possible. And the reason for that is, I mean, it's very simple for me. We don't want to add.
You want to provide the best possible product at the lowest possible price. You're a step ahead of
Right.
him. He's actually a farmer and a cultivator. Are you guys cultivating, or are you buying your product from?
No,
Not yet.
we have labs that have been. Here's the beautiful thing.
But I mean,
We're
are you
being-
guys growing? Are you growing your product? And,
We
No, not yet.
have people who do their own organic grows.
right.
The labs that we work with have been watching us for a long time, and they approached us. They liked what we were doing. They liked our approach, and they wanted to partner with us. They wanted to sell us their extracts. So
Well,
the fortunate,
maybe my friend and you could reach an agreement, because he's, I'm sure he's on his second. This is his second year, so he's going to have another harvest. I know that last year he had quite a bit of product, and that was actually one of the first initial reasons why I reached out to you. So, you guys are probably your business is going to continue to expand, and I project anyway. I kind of imagine that it's going to continue to expand. So, if you're wanting to pick up another grower, I'd like for you to take a look at him. His product is the solvent extracted, but part of the reason is because his time is spent in the cultivation. And I think that if you two could reach, if Patty and Bruce could reach a deal with my buddy George, then I think that there's potential to where it would benefit both of you. I'm pretty sure, because I've been around the block when it comes to knowing quality of people, and my friend George, I mean, he's growing his stuff on his home, and we're going to do the lab test. We'll see. The proof's always in the pudding. But
that's right. Always in the lab test.
Mhm.
Right. We are reaching out to farms. We do it all the time. That's something that we do. And we work with them for weeks even, saying, okay, it's not exactly how we want it. Can you add this? Then they try that. Then we do another thing. Like we know exactly what we want.
Nice.
So if you shoot us his information, we'll have Matt, our manager, get a hold of him, and we
Where do you
can
want me to shoot
all
it to?
talk cannabis together.
What we're looking for
Mhm.
is we're looking for specific cannabinoids and specific terpenoids. So one thing that's very different about our product compared to, say, another CBD company is we blend different extracts together. We just don't stick with one sativa strain. We have multiple strains, cultivars, however you want to label them. We will blend multiple cultivars together. That's
Right.
why we have such far-reaching cannabinoids, trace cannabinoids.
Nice.
We're looking at very specific terpenoids too.
Yeah, we're high in terpenes.
Yeah, when we got involved in this, we knew that the terpenes were critical right out of the chute because of the people, the scientists that we were working with. They've been involved for a long, long time. They like to stay in the lab.
Mhm.
I was basically the face, Patty and I were the face of what they were doing in the lab. We still work with these groups, but primarily what we did is we felt that in order to quality control this product, we needed to do it all in-house. I didn't want to rely on someone else.
Nice.
And the way that we work is, I'm a former IBMer, so let me tell you
You're very
how
methodic.
IBM
You're very methodic. IBM hires people who are high caliber.
and test.
Mhm.
And we don't wait till something gets out in the field to have a failure. We want to make sure we test it all the way through the manufacturing process. And I use those same techniques with this. For example, I'll tell you just how it works. A company will approach us. They'll say, hey, we want you to take a look at our extracts. My first question out of my mouth is, do you have a full panel COA? I just don't want to look at your cannabinoid. I want to look at your heavy metals. I want to look at your pesticides. I want to look at your herbicides and your microbial contamination. So we're really trying to create a true medical grade product. It may not have a medical stamp on it from an institution,
Right.
but you test this in a lab and it's going to test off the charts.
Well,
And
those
we've had labs.
institutions don't even exist right now. And as far as our the government is looking at the situation, and they're still classifying cannabis as no acceptable medical use. So, looking for an institution to give you a stamp at this moment in time, you guys are taking a proactive approach because that doesn't even exist.
Right. So this is what we're trying to do. We're really trying to stay ahead of the curve, try to anticipate what's coming down the pike.
Right.
And we're just trying to create a really high quality product
Perfect.
at a very low cost because we know people need this.
Right.
You don't know how many people that have been affected by COVID that they've lost their whole livelihood completely.
I could imagine.
So we've done COVID discounts. We've done a lot of things to really drive the price down for
Well, you guys, you two and George, I don't mean to interrupt, but you and George share a lot of the very similar hearts when it comes to that. High quality. He has a background in cultivation. He's studied plants his whole life. He just loves plants. He's got a heck of a green thumb. And he doesn't use any pesticides, doesn't use any fertilizers. It's all on his homestead, him, his wife, and now he has one helper who's working. And so he studied horticulture and growing plants. He worked with the Peace Corps. And one of the ways that we met, him and I met through online, he had watched some of my YouTube videos, gold mining videos. And his story is that he was also gold mining and dredging in Honduras, just like me. So we have like this mirrored storyline. And he reached out to me to be able to make contact. And at the time, he wasn't married yet, but he married a Honduran woman, just like I did. And he's living in the United States, just like I am, with my Honduran woman, him with his Honduran woman, and he's on his homestead. And so one of the things that he was doing with the Peace Corps was he was helping teach people how to better grow their food. So he's got a lot of experience in growing, and he's a heck of a guy. He's very cultured and he's really down to earth. I visited his farm. My wife and I both visited his farm after our first child was born. His first child was born just a few months before mine. So we have a relationship, and we stayed at his farm for I think maybe 10 days or something like that, and he welcomed us there. And so this was the winter of 2016, 2017. And he's, like I said, he's finishing his second year harvesting, growing. And so you guys can coordinate, I think, your efforts. Even if the product that he's growing, the strains that he's growing, isn't what you're looking for this season, you guys could work together possibly and cultivate something for next year if you guys are wanting to.
We're always looking for additional farmers. Some of the groups that we work with, of course, I mean, this was a small operation, but some of the groups that we work with, of course, they have thousands of acres on their production facilities. And so, but we're always looking for that clean grow. I don't care if it's an acre or 20 acres, as long as it's done cleanly and it has the cannabinoid content and percentages that we're interested in and the terpene profiles that we're interested in. I'm willing to help because this industry has to kind of grow together. We're all going to help each other.
Right. Go ahead and continue talking. I'm going to look up his farm, and we're going to put it up here on the feed.
Chris, if you just send us that information, that would be fantastic. And also send us your address, and we will send you a bottle of our oil so you can try it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do that apart. But as far as my address, but I do want to bring up his website here, just for the fun of it. And my computer is a little slow right now. We're starting off with this podcast, and we're probably going to have a much quicker computer afterward. Here we go. I'm going to bring this screen. You're going to be able to see here. is share. And can you see the screen there? George's Holly Green Farm.
Get it now. Yep. Patty's going to take a picture of that.
Yeah, and you
There
can
we go.
always come back and watch this video on YouTube as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yep, we'll take all of this information, Chris, and we will definitely give him a call and see what's going on with him. And that would be great. And we'd love to send you some oil as well.
Yeah, you're definitely going to send me some oil, and I'm going to be ordering some seed from him, and we're going to try out the sprouting.
Yeah,
And I'm going to
Sprouting.
send you guys,
proud.
and I'll send you guys a copy or a sample or whatnot. You guys are going to pay for that, right? And send that off for an analysis.
Yeah. So what I would need, Chris, is about 12 to 14 ml of that juice in a good sealed container, and then I can ship it right off to Acacia Labs, and we can have that analyzed, a full panel analysis on it. We'll understand. I'd say about 14 ml, just 14 mLs.
Okay.
Half an ounce is 15 ml, so a half an ounce would be more than enough. That way they can, because they're going to be doing multiple tests, and we're going to have tests done on the cannabinoids. We're going to have the terpenoids tested. The flavonoids we won't do yet because we're not at that level. The test labs aren't set up for flavonoids yet. But we'll know the microbials, we'll know all the heavy metal content. So you're going to know whether or not you've got a good, clean product that you're consuming.
Right. So I think what we're going to do first is we're going to get Matt on the phone with your friend, and then we'll set that all up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds absolutely amazing. I'm super excited.
Questions before we go into doing any kind of lab tests.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to order the seeds, and I will send you what I have inside my home. And you guys are going to do me the favor to do the test on that. And as far as any agreements between your business and his business, that's going to be conducted between Matt and him.
Right.
Privately.
Right.
Yes.
It'll all be done through our manager.
Our company. Yeah.
Very good. Yes, that's
Perfect.
very good. I love you guys. You guys are amazing.
Oh, how sweet.
Thank you for having us. This is really important for us too. We've been asked to talk on a number of radio shows, and it's just wonderful that we're getting invited to do all these great things. It means that whatever we're doing right. People are paying attention. We're being watched by doctors around the world are paying attention to what we're doing. We're just simple people. A little bit of a technical background. Patty, her background was in the hospitality industry. She worked at Trapp Family Lodge running that dining room for 10 years. So, if you ever heard of the Sound of Music, well, that's where Patty worked.
I know those people personally.
Well, I'd say for me, I can speak for me, I'm just a regular, everyday, normal guy.
See, that's us too.
That's us too.
Yep.
There's actually a song for people who want to look that up, regular, everyday, normal guy. That was kind of a pun.
Kind of cute.
Yeah.
Yes. But the God takes ordinary people and gets them to do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very true. It's my heart to be able to share this, and I'm super excited that this in my opinion was a major success. I started working on this podcast 2 weeks ago today, and I know that when I was on Facebook Live for the first half an hour telling people, hey, come join me on a Facebook Live, I'm starting a podcast, I knew at the moment that could seem to come across rather strange or whatnot and maybe flippant, but I had in mind and in heart that we would be building something to this caliber, and we're just starting. And this is the first episode for Cannabis.
Yeah, what a great start.
We started selling 1 10 mil tube a month, and then 1 a week, then 1 a day, and now
We're
we
selling.
have an amazing company.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're very young and you have all this passion, and, you know, and now you know us, and you have your friend George, and you have the doctor, and really, I mean, I think you have the best of everything right here. You can ask us anything, the doctor, your friend, and there's only up from here for
Right.
you.
And think of the people that you're going to help, not just you and your wife and your children or your family. I mean, you have the potential to really make a huge change for everybody in your community.
The world.
If they're willing to listen, be patient with them, because we're in a transitional stage, right? There's still that stigma about, you know, the boogeyman, marijuana. Just work through it. Be patient with people and educate them. Look at it as an opportunity to
take your
to
time,
educate,
right?
because,
And don't be offended. And
Yeah.
you know, the thing is, right, is we still get people who say negative things, and I don't even care. I just say, I don't care what you say. I know what I know, and I know what I see, and that's that. And you can say anything you want about me. You can say I'm going to kill people. You can say I'm going to harm people. You can say terrible things about me. I don't care, because I know what I know. And you know, one thing about cannabis is it's like explaining electricity to people who have used candles their whole life.
yeah, that's a good analogy. It's true,
Well,
because
it is. Well, you know, when Christopher Columbus and when he came back alive, people were
Right.
like, no effing way.
Yeah. He was going to fall off the side of the earth. He was going to sail right off the side of the earth.
Well, imagine putting yourself. Because I played this out and to try to get a grasp of what it was like for him. From what I gather, 6 years he was trying to find funds, and then when he did find funds, after that he had to find people who were going to get on those 3 ships,
right,
and travel. So all of those people who he had to convince, and all of their family who was extremely anxious, I couldn't even imagine what Christopher Columbus had to go through, and those people had to go through. And then when they came back, when they got back to the other side, it was it made history.
And I feel as though we're just like Christopher Columbus, because we're going where no one has gone before, really. Exactly. I mean, not in this age. And you have to be passionate about it. You have to be like I always say, I run everything with my hair on fire. So, you know, if you see me running at you with my hair on fire, it's probably a good thing.
I'm going to look for some water if I see you running at me with your hair on fire.
Don't pull me out, because
or a blanket. I'm going to put you out, okay? I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not going to let you burn. I won't run the other way. I'm going to run straight towards you and help you.
See? That's what happens. Everybody wants to help me when I'm on fire, so it's really, really a good thing, and it brings a sense of just amazing feelings to your life,
right,
and your being. So
well, I feel amazing, and I know you guys feel amazing, and I'm sure people who are watching this for the first time, they're thinking, holy cow, this thing is amazing, and I want to see it next week live at noon Eastern Standard Time. And right now it's coming up on 3 o'clock. We've got almost a full 3 hours, and it doesn't feel like it probably, but
very fast.
Yeah, it does. It goes by very quick. So I'm going to go ahead and say thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Wonderful day.
Welcome.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited, very much looking forward to it. And we're going to continue building this library for everybody.
Sure. Sounds great.
Very good.
Take care, Chris.
Take care, Chris.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.